Chapter 2100. The last line of words on this tablet was obviously added at the end. The handwriting was definitely not verbose. As the current Medicine King, I should pass down this legacy to the world. Unfortunately, there are rumors of extraterrestrial demons wreaking havoc. We discussed and decided to abandon this place and slaughter all the demons. I will not return until the demons are exterminated. Seeing this line of words, Chu Yang suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart. Extraterrestrial demons. Extraterrestrial demons again. Since ancient times, how many heroes and heroes had disappeared from the world just to slaughter the extraterrestrial devils? And this Medicine King had gone just like that, and now he had yet to return. His ending could be imagined. Could it be that the demons could not be exterminated? On the other tablet, the handwriting was full of hostility. Chu Yang had seen this kind of handwriting before. It was the handwriting of the heavenly emperor of purple clouds, Zihao himself. Zihao, I am fortunate to have this palace of the Medicine King. I will definitely bring it to greater heights. And for the Medicine King, I will exterminate all the demons. Seeing this, Chu Yang could not help but sigh. The palace of the Medicine King was built by the ancient Medicine King. It contained the art of immortality, the art of gold core, the art of creation, the art of heavenly fortune, and so on. There were dozens of miraculous cultivation methods that humans had no chance of seeing. Any one of them could change the fate of the person who was fated with it, turning the rotten into the miraculous, turning the absurd into the legendary. And it was precisely because the Medicine King sensed the ambitions of the extraterrestrial demons that he crossed the heavens with a few brothers to exterminate the demons. Unfortunately, he did not return. And before he left, he seemed to have realized something and left his legacy in the human world. He also left a spark and a hope for the future. The heavenly emperor of purple clouds, Zihao's words were very clear. Zihao himself was the successor of the first king of medicine. He was the first person to place his hopes on. It was after Zihao obtained the divine palace of the Medicine King that he began to rise rapidly. Using the Jindan technique, the art of creation, and so on, he grew into a celestial emperor in an extremely short period of time. And he did not go back on his promise, and indeed fought with the heavenly demon until the last moment of his life. The only regret was that the heavenly emperor of purple clouds still could not change the hearts of people. In the end, he was defeated by the despicable side of human nature. If that is the case, the problem of the extraterrestrial demons has been around for a long time. If it wasn't for the Medicine King and other seniors who went to eliminate them, the development of the heavenly devil would have been even faster. Tian Ke would have been in an unknown state by now. In other words, although the Medicine King and the other seniors had not returned, they had successfully delayed the footsteps of the extraterrestrial demons for millions of years. Their sacrifice is of great value, but this value is only reflected in the lives of the common people. To them it is sorrow and betrayal. Chu Yang said in a low voice, "What I said is reasonable? Isn't that a little too extreme?" The sword spirit pondered for a while and said, "No, this is the truth. These seniors shed their blood and cut off their heads for the sake of the people of the world. In the end, how many people in the world will remember those seniors who sacrificed themselves?" Chu Yang laughed coldly. Later on, the Purple Cloud Celestial Emperor fought against the extraterrestrial demons with all his strength. Although he was destroyed in the end, I believe that he still greatly damaged the vitality of the extraterrestrial demons. As a result, the extraterrestrial demons can only occupy the Purple Cloud Celestial Heavens and have not made any further moves to expand. I even suspect that it is not that they do not want to expand, but that they do not have the strength to continue. Is it appropriate for me to understand it this way? Chu Yang asked again. Even if there are discrepancies, I believe that it is not much different from the truth. The sword spirit nodded vigorously. How many years has it been since the Purple Cloud Celestial Emperor died? Chu Yang asked. It should be close to 1,000,000 years. The sword spirit sighed. 1,000,000 years is enough for them to recuperate and accumulate strength. After this period of recuperation, the extraterrestrial demons should be about to recover their vitality. They might have even recovered their vitality. They are not moving for the time being, just waiting for an opportunity to launch their attack. In other words, the extraterrestrial demon tribulation of the Heaven Imperial Court is about to come again. Chu Yang's voice was heavy, and a sense of crisis rose from the bottom of his heart. The sword spirit also said heavily, "Sigh, although I am very unwilling to admit it, judging from the time, it is indeed about time. 1,000,000 years of accumulation is enough to erase any losses." Chu Yang sighed deeply and bowed in front of the two tablets of the two seniors. Then he strode into the Medicine King's palace. Inside there was an extremely detailed instruction map. Practice area. Elixir area. Archives area. Cultivation area. Residential area. All kinds of facilities could be found here. As long as you could think of it, you could find it here. Chu Yang entered the archives area at once. This was the core area and also the lifeline of a force. When he entered, he saw a large, empty room. There seemed to be only 5 shelves inside, and each shelf only had one piece of jade. It was a bit of an exaggeration to say that it was a room to store ancient books, and it didn't live up to its name. Chu Yang did not neglect it all. He walked to the first shelf and locked his eyes on the jade. There were a few words engraved on the jade. Only a few words. Chu Yang had just looked at it when he immediately felt a majestic saber intent that wanted to cut through the world and the firmament. I am the Saber King. There is no other saber in the world, the first saber in the firmament. I went to Cheongsha to fight the extraterrestrial demons and threw away the flashy. The legacy of the saber is here. If the younger generation obtains it, the name of the Saber King will never be extinguished. With blood as the guide, the saber energy of the soul will enter the body, and you will obtain my legacy. The legacy of the Saber King. It is the legacy of the Saber King. Chu Yang was shocked. Then he reached out and picked up the jade. Using his finger as a knife, he cut his index finger and dripped his blood on the white jade. Then a saber energy appeared out of thin air and went straight for Chu Yang's glabella. With Chu Yang's cultivation, there was no room for him to dodge. Saber. A big word appeared in Chu Yang's mind. With a cursory look, he saw that it included how to use the saber, how to draw the saber, how to cultivate the saber. Everything about the saber, countless techniques about the saber, it could be said that it had everything, and it was full of essence. All the doubts Chu Yang had about the saber in the past were cleared up after a cursory look. As expected of the Saber King's legacy, it is really impressive. This Saber King's legacy is most useful to Wu Shang. When I meet him in the future, I must spar with him and let him inherit this legacy. It seems to be a waste to leave it here with me. Chu Yang took a deep breath and calmed his emotions. He walked to the second wooden shelf. But before he could even reach Zhang Xian, a sharp sword aura had already surged toward him. I am the Saber King. The Saber King. The Saber King's legacy is all here. Chu Yang was shocked. The Saber King's legacy was useful to him, Gu Duxing, Luo Kadi, GMO, Ao Shiyun and the rest. Then like before, Chu Yang kept the Saber King's legacy and moved forward again. Next was the Poison King's legacy. Next was the Spear King's legacy. Last was the Medicine King's legacy. The Poison King's legacy is suitable for Lure and Wu Jueqing. As for the Spear King's legacy, only this one doesn't seem to be suitable. I'll leave it to fate. Chu Yang thought as he kept the legacy. When it came to the Medicine King's legacy, Chu Yang finally took it seriously. The Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor finally became a Heavenly Emperor with this legacy. Based on the current situation, the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor probably didn't reach the level of the Medicine King even at his peak. Chu Yang sighed with emotion in his heart. This is really fate and luck. If the Purple Cloud Heavenly Emperor, Zihao, had not been conferred the title of Purple Cloud Heavenly Emperor back then, but had come from another world as long as he was given enough time, he would have been able to contend against the heavenly demons with the power of a single world, or even slaughter them. It was a pity that he was conferred the title of Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor. But Chu Yang thought about it again. With the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor's temper, even if he was given the chance to choose, he wouldn't necessarily choose another world, right? His only choice would only be the closest enemy, Purple Cloud's Heavenly. If not, then he wouldn't be the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor. Facing the remains of his ancestors, Chu Yang sighed. Sword Spirit, I think there's a high chance that the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor's medicine spirit was obtained here. Chu Yang finally understood something. And that unknown yet familiar aura just now should be the aura left behind by the Purple Cloud's medicine spirit. The Sword Spirit also realized at once. Yes, there's a high possibility. I think the medicine spirit's original body is very likely here. After the medicine spirit's incarnation disappeared with the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor back then, the medicine spirit's original body here also turned into ashes immediately. But the medicinal power contained in its original body didn't dissipate. This also caused the strange phenomenon here. Chu Yang speculated slowly. Yes, it should be so. The Sword Spirit completely agreed with Chu Yang's speculation. And the few sworn brothers who went to the disaster with the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor should have cultivated the cultivation techniques of the Saber King, Sword King, Poison King and the others. Chu Yang said, therefore the few of them could walk the world side by side, establish illustrious achievements, and don't belong to the secular world. Even if they had a certain foundation in the past, the ones who really rose should also be after obtaining these inheritances. Yes. Only this makes sense. The sword spirit agreed repeatedly. Not only can the divine palace of the medicine kings grow large amounts of medicinal herbs, the space inside is also abnormally vast. Chu Yang said, other than growing medicinal herbs, it should also be able to accommodate thousands of troops. Why did the Purple Cloud's heavenly emperor place it here but not use it for war? With this space, the battle tactics he can use will undoubtedly be even more marvelous. This is something that I can't understand. The sword spirit said, indeed, I also can't understand this. Looking at the layout inside, I'm afraid that the Purple Cloud's heavenly emperor really once stationed troops here. But why did this treasure end up in this small border town in the end? This reason is really unclear. But the sword spirit hesitated. But what? Chu Yang turned back sensitively. Legend has it that there's a kind of life space which is roughly equivalent to our tribulation space. If one's cultivation reaches a certain level, even if the person dies, the space can still exist independently and return to the place where it first existed. According to ancient legends, this kind of space is called the self-created universe. Chapter 2101. Did I ask you to kick me? Did I ask you to kick me? You bastard, I thought you had grown up, but it turns out. He didn't explain. Lazy Cat might misunderstand that Greasy Cat was unwilling to endure her yelling, counterattacking, and destroying a flower. That was more acceptable. At least, that was something only a man with vigor would do. However, in this situation, it was clearly a mistake made by a good-for-nothing. She was so angry that her liver hurt and her heart trembled. I asked you to kick the tree. What are you thinking about? You bastard. Greasy Guy's whole body trembled. He took a few steps back and tried to defend himself weakly. But you didn't make it clear. You're responsible too. Obviously, Greasy Cat didn't understand women better than Chu Yang. At such a juncture, he actually dared to defend himself and even tried to reason with a woman? It was a mistake on top of a mistake. He was hopelessly wrong. One could already imagine his tragedy. In a trance, Lazy Cat had already flown up. You didn't make it clear. You were unreasonable and cunning. You defended yourself with me. You kicked me. You've got guts. I'm going back to tell your father. He said you bullied me. He even dared to kick me. I'm going back to tell my father. He said you bullied me. He even dared to hit me. I'm going to kill you right now. You bullied me. You kicked me. A series of sounds of punching sandbags joined together into a single sound. How can you be like this? Is there any justice left? You really asked me to kick you. Even if I misunderstood, you're also partly responsible. Sob, sob, sob. Greasy Cat covered his head with one hand and his crotch with the other. He cried aggrievedly. Sob, sob, sob. You can't be unreasonable. A certain cat was truly a Tai Chi character. Even now, it still hadn't understood the situation and was still trying to reason. It was truly too outrageous. So, why didn't I discover this before? To think that crooked fish was actually such a pighead. Today I've really opened my eyes. In the future, I'd better not hang out with him too much. Maybe one day I'll be led into a ditch by him. Chu Yang, who was standing outside the courtyard, quietly left. If he were to go in now, Teacher Cat would only be beaten up even more miserably. It would be too horrible to look at. Behind him, the sounds of hard hitting continued to linger in his ears, getting farther and farther away. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. Bang. In the afternoon, Chu Yang looked at the bruised and swollen fishy cat. Brother Cat, what's your fiancé's current cultivation level? Fishy grinned miserably. Heaven stage upper level. Anyway, it's definitely higher than me. Why can't my cultivation be higher? If my cultivation was higher, would I be in such a miserable state? What's the use of letting a woman have such a high cultivation level? Boo. Chu Yang gritted his teeth. Brother Cat, we're all brothers. Seeing you like this, I really can't bear it. How about this? I'll give you something good and let you break through to heaven stage upper level. You'll definitely be stronger than your fiancé. How about that? Is that true? That's great. Brother, you're my blood brother. Fishy Cat's eyes instantly widened in surprise. If that's the case, I'll have the power to fight back. That's great, that's great. See if I don't let that woman know what it means to be conquered. Come. Chu Yang pulled Fishy Cat into the courtyard mysteriously. At night. Everyone came to watch Fishy Cat's process of conquering his ferocious wife after raising his cultivation level. Everyone's faces were tense. No one knew what they were thinking. However, everyone was very interested in this kind of open confrontation between a man and a woman, especially when the man won. Conquer. Everyone come and learn what it means to conquer. As expected, Tai Budian and Wu Chanshan came together with Cat Xiaolian. Cat Xiaolian noticed the change in Fishy Cat at first glance. The person most familiar with Fishy Cat was still Cat Xiaolian. Fishy Cat stood not far away with his head held high and his chest puffed out. The way he looked at her was actually different from before. He seemed to be very eager to try. You've actually raised your cultivation level? It's actually about the same as mine? A little deeper than mine? Not bad. Cat Xiaolian looked at Fishy Cat in a fuss. Come here. Let me take a closer look. Fishy Cat said in a strange voice. What? What did you say? The atmosphere was full of provocation. Cat Xiaolian was still surprised by someone's improvement. She said casually, I said, come over and take a closer look. Fishy Cat puffed out his chest. I'm not going over. I'm not going over. When Cat Xiaolian heard Fishy Cat's words, she was a little hesitant. What did you say to me? Fishy Cat became even more arrogant and cocky. I said I'm not going over. Cat Xiaolian completely understood. She glared and stomped her feet in anger. Are you coming over or not? You think I'll go over just because you asked me to? Who do you think you are? I'm not going over. Say it again and you won't come over? I'll tell you who I am. Cat Xiaolian narrowed her eyes dangerously. The atmosphere gradually changed and the atmosphere seemed to have reversed. Fishy Cat's heart was pounding. He subconsciously walked over hesitantly. He could still be stubborn. Fine, I'll go over. Do you think I don't know who you are? What can you do about it? At this point, Chu Yang and the others who were in high spirits were already discouraged. Fuck, this bastard had already softened by 70%. Seeing him step forward, Cat Xiaolian didn't say a word and started to attack him. Fishy Cat fought back and roared, I gave in to you before and I couldn't beat you. Now I can beat you. I won't give in to you anymore. Chu Yang and the others perked up. Was there a chance? It was rare for Teacher Cat to be so stubborn. Perhaps there would be a shocking reversal. Cat Xiaolian yelled, You dare to fight back? Fishy Cat's arrogance was immediately dampened. He murmured, You hit me and I can't fight back? Is there any justice in this? But his hands had already softened. Cat Xiaolian continued to attack, punching him again and again. He flew into a rage and said, Fight back again? Fight back again? Don't give in to me, fight back. Fishy Cat managed to hold on for a while. Obviously he could only parry and didn't have the strength to fight back. Good, you still dare to fight back? When I get back I'll tell your dad. If you fight back again I'll tell my dad. He'll tell him that you bullied me and let the two of them take care of you. Let's see how you fight back. Cat Xiaolian roared. At this point, Fishy was completely defeated. He actually squatted on the ground during the battle, hugged his head with both hands and cried, I'm not going to fight anymore. Don't tell on me. Go ahead and fight, just be gentle. Bam, 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 Chu Yang, Lightning Snake and the others were stunned for a long time. Then they sighed together. Was this a matter of one's cultivation level? It didn't seem to have anything to do with that. This guy was born to be henpecked. There was no cure for this disease. Chu Yang secretly rejoiced that he didn't give anything too good to improve a certain cat's cultivation. If he did, it would have been a waste. It would have been too embarrassing. Chu Yang and the others were dispirited. They sighed and shook their heads and left the table. They couldn't bear to watch and were even angrier. How could they continue watching? As for persuading them to fight, forget it. We're already thanking the heavens that we didn't get it. Why would we try to persuade them to fight? This was crazy. It had been 3 days. The spatial integration in the tribulation space was still ongoing. He couldn't tell how far it had progressed. There wasn't even much movement. Chu Yang could only pray. Please finish the integration before Mo Yuntian's men arrive. Otherwise I'll be too miserable. What Chu Yang didn't know was that in the dark night, in the distant horizon, there were 3 gigantic flying ships. They pierced through the heavy night fog, and like 3 prehistoric monsters, they were speeding toward the eastern royal heavens. There were at least 1,000 people on each flying ship. On the leading ship, an old man frowned and looked at the night fog in front of him, his face dark. He didn't say a word. The people behind him all had the same expression. That Chu Yang who dared to kill His Majesty must be captured alive. His Majesty said that he wanted him to experience all the pain in the world before he died. Tell me how long more until we reach the Eastern Royal Heavens? The old man didn't even turn his head and just asked. There's less than 20 hours left. Someone answered. There's less than 20 hours left. The old man had a strange expression on his face. He sighed softly. In less than 20 hours, I'll have to do something like this with my own hands. Behind him, a strong man said carefully, General, why didn't you tell His Majesty about this matter back then? This matter is His Majesty's fault. We're not in the right. Why did you? The old man closed his eyes. After a long time he said, How do you know that I didn't report it? I asked His Majesty to report it, but he didn't show up the next day. When I went to his residence to look for him, I was told that he was recuperating. Do you understand? He's recuperating, not recuperating. The strong man couldn't help but tremble. I saw His Majesty's injuries with my own eyes. The old man closed his eyes and sighed deeply. The able-bodied man shut his mouth tightly. The surrounding people also lowered their heads and shut their mouths. The surroundings were completely silent. Since His Majesty had seen it, it must be true. Who was His Majesty? He was Mo Yunqian's second in command. He was second only to one person and above millions of people. In Mo Yunqian there was only one person who dared to hit His Majesty. As for who that person was there a need to guess? Even His Majesty was hit because of this matter. Then what about the others? There's no need to mention them. Since that was the case, was it important to be reasonable or unreasonable? Chapter 2102. Everyone return to your posts. 20 hours later, the battle may start anytime. Everyone must be prepared and rest in advance. Perhaps, it will be hard for us to have a good rest in the following period of time, the elder said slowly with his eyes closed. Isn't it just a mere Chuyang? At most, there's still Mo Yuntian and the remaining people from the 3 sects who went to explore this time. What's the point? We actually need to be prepared for a long battle? Isn't this making a mountain out of a molehill? Someone said disdainfully. The elder looked over coldly. Bastard. That's the Eastern Royal Heaven. Don't you know what kind of person the Eastern Royal Heaven is? If the Eastern Royal Heaven interferes in this matter, he doesn't even need to do it personally. He just needs to give the order and we'll be lucky if we can escape unscathed. That person shuddered. Yes. At this point, no one dared to be impudent anymore. Speed up. The elder ordered with his eyes closed. The flying boat continued to speed up in the night sky, heading towards a certain place in the dark night. Chu Clan Courtyard. It was still peaceful at this moment. Chu Yang lay on the bed, hugging Tai Budian on his left and Wu Chanshan on his right. The room was filled with light, and the 2 bodies were filled with seductive amorous feelings. Chu Yang lay on the bed with his eyes closed. However, even at this moment, Chu Yang could faintly feel that there was a huge danger gradually approaching. Would he be able to make it through this time? Chu Yang really didn't dare to say that he could definitely do it. What was the thing that humans feared the most? The only universal answer was the unknown. Although the Heavenly Demon and the Dharma Supreme were very powerful and Chu Yang had joined forces with them and there was a huge disparity in their actual strength, Chu Yang didn't have a single fear in his heart. Because no matter if it was the Heavenly Demon or the Dharma Supreme, no matter how strong they were, they had already exposed their strength to everyone. No matter how sharp and strong they were, there were ways to counter them. Only the unknown was unfathomable and unpredictable. Underestimating the enemy would only increase the time limit of one's defeat. Overestimating the enemy would only increase unnecessary pressure on one's side. Therefore, only an accurate assessment was the right way for a qualified leader to do things. Right now, Chu Yang was making such an assessment. He didn't exaggerate the enemy's strength, but he also didn't underestimate the danger that the enemy might bring. At this moment, Chu Yang suddenly felt a burst of turbulence in his consciousness. Chu Yang suddenly felt a splitting headache. He was afraid of waking up the beauty, so he endured it and didn't make a sound. Lord Swordmaster, something has happened. Something good has happened. The Sword Spirit said. Chu Yang's consciousness moved, and his mind entered the tribulation space. This time they entered a vast expanse of whiteness. The change in the environment wasn't the most important thing. Instead, he felt an extremely pure spiritual energy in the air, and it almost suffocated him. For example, oxygen is a good thing, but if you are suddenly given 10 times or 100 times compressed oxygen, you will be suffocated to death. Using oxygen to suffocate to death sounds inconceivable, but it is absolutely possible. Chu Yang was currently facing such a situation. Pure spiritual energy was definitely a good thing under normal circumstances. But if it was too pure and there was too much of it would also make people feel unbearably weak. Haha, the fusion of the two spaces has been completed. Now the tribulation space is upgrading with the help of the Medicine King's space. The Sword Spirit said excitedly, after this upgrade, it will be a small universe like Spirit Space. Lord Swordmaster, this is a joyous occasion. Really? Chu Yang felt that he had finally heard good news. It's not true. The Sword Spirit said, it turns out that the origin of this planet has another meaning. The Medicine King's palace didn't absorb all the spiritual energy here. There is still spiritual energy that is tens of thousands of times purer hidden inside. This time, it was completely decomposed by the tribulation space because its grade is lower than the tribulation spaces. The spiritual energy has finally erupted. The fusion has just been completed. In such a short time, the great herbs and the holy crystals have all upgraded by 1 level. In the elixir garden, the 3 elixir spirits have also upgraded by 1 level. The other elixirs are also growing rapidly. The Sword Spirit said, Lord Swordmaster, this is just the beginning. If there are experts practicing here, they can completely improve their strength during the upgrade of the tribulation space. It can be improved by several times. Improved by several times? Chu Yang's eyes lit up. Is there a limit to the number? How many people can it accommodate? The Sword Spirit said excitedly, in fact, the spiritual energy here is more or less too much. Even if there are thousands of people, it can still bear it. However, because we need to give them another independent space, the number of people can't be too high. It's best not to have more than 50 people at a time. Not more than 50 people. Chu Yang pondered. Yes, Lord Swordmaster, it's better to give the benefits to our own people. Even if you want to give it to outsiders, you should give it to those who can be completely trusted. Although in terms of effectiveness, those people in Yuntian may have the best effect, they are still not your real team after all, the Sword Spirit reminded him. Chu Yang pondered. Among his own people, who was there that he could trust? At present, Tai Budian, Wu Chanshan, Madame Mei, Xia Danfeng, Huyan Albua and the other brothers-in-law were definitely trustworthy. They were the standard people on his side. As for the others, Wang Dao and Shifu Hua were also not a problem. In addition, Duan Sankong, Lightning Snake and the other 2 sabers could also be counted in the list of people he could absolutely trust. As for the others, for example, the people from the 3 big sects who had just come over, he was a little worried. In this way, it seemed that there were less than 20 people who he could really trust. Brother Tiger was also included. Chu Yang frowned. The supply was exceeding the demand. Lord Swordmaster, you'd better let them in quickly. If it's too late, I'm afraid that the spiritual energy will be absorbed by the tribulation space in reverse. At that time, it'll really be useless and we can only hide it. It's better to create a few experts now. The Sword Spirit urged him. All right. Chu Yang made a prompt decision and made up his mind. That night, Chu Yang called for an emergency assembly. First, he ordered Lightning Snake and the other 2 to choose the most reliable and loyal subordinates of his 20 people. Although the 3 of them did not know what the Manor Lord's intention was, they knew that there must be a reason, so they immediately went to choose. In this space, the Sword Spirit used his unique, landlord power, to quickly establish various independent spaces that were not connected to each other. Chu Yang notified Wang Dao in advance and asked him to hurry back. Then he sent Xian Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian inside. Then, it was Brother Tiger, Huyan Albua and the others. Shifu Hua, Lazy Cat and the others. After confirming that everyone had entered, the Sword Spirit specifically assigned them inside. The Sword Spirit was the one who understood Chu Yang the best. So, he naturally gave the best seats to Tai Budian, Wu Chanshan, Brother Tiger, then Huyan Albua and the others. After that, he gave the best seats to Shifty Thing and Lazy Cat. The next position was given to Duan Sankong, Wang Dao and the others. As for Lightning Snake and the other 2, the Sword Spirit arranged for them to be in a relatively lower position. As for his subordinates, they could only be placed in the outermost position. However, even in the outermost area, the spiritual energy was so abundant that it was unbelievable. Furthermore, it was growing at a rapid rate at every moment. Lightning Snake, Thunder Wild Blade and the others were ecstatic. Even now, the spiritual energy density was at least 100 times higher than the core area of any big sect or super sect in the world. And it was still increasing rapidly. In other words, 1 day of cultivation here was almost equivalent to 1 year of cultivation outside. And this range was still increasing. 1 day of cultivation here might be equivalent to 10 years of cultivation outside, of course, The outside world here was equivalent to the core cultivation area of a super sect. The sword spirit was smiling disdainfully. 10 years? 10 years was nothing. When the spiritual energy was completely released, it could increase one's cultivation by several times. They've all gone in. What about me? Where did you arrange for me? Chuyang asked excitedly. You don't have to come in. I didn't prepare a place for you at all. The sword spirit said strangely, this space is in your body. If you don't come in, it's completely inclusive. You can enjoy everything in the space. You don't have to come in at all. Also, can you have some common sense? You're the one who benefits the most from your own things. I don't even want to talk nonsense with you. You're too ignorant and have no common sense. Chuyang was relieved. He smiled from ear to ear. Like that? That's great, that's great. So what if I'm ignorant and have no common sense? I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm proud. Everyone went in and focused on cultivation. Because the spiritual energy was so rich, they were in an environment where they would suffocate at any time if they didn't cultivate with all their might. The spiritual energy was now so rich that it had turned into water droplets, dripping down continuously. From the looks of it, it might not be long before it forms a solid state. In such an environment, it was impossible not to cultivate with all their might. To put it bluntly, not cultivating with all their might was an act of seeking death. If they were suffocated to death by the rich spiritual energy, this kind of death would be too unpleasant to hear. Chuyang's situation was the same. It was even more exaggerated. He could clearly feel that his dantian was crazily absorbing the spiritual energy. It was filling up at a speed visible to the naked eye. It looked like it was about to be filled. This was no longer the time when he was at the earth or heaven level. Chuyang was now at the saint level. The amount of spiritual energy needed to fill his dantian was no longer the same as before. But even with such a premise, it was about to be filled up. Chuyang understood his own situation through inner vision. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. Then he suddenly heard the sword spirit cry out in alarm. What's going on? What? Then Chuyang only felt his mind shake with a loud bang. A mouthful of blood spurted out. Then Chuyang shockingly discovered that he had lost contact with the tribulation space. Although the dense spiritual energy was still pouring into his body, he couldn't feel the existence of the tribulation space at all. I have to ask everyone a question. Now, all of Chuyang's escape routes have been cut off by me. Shueleihan went back. Those who stayed behind didn't understand Shueleihan's intentions and wouldn't help Chuyang. I've cut off the tribulation space. I've restricted the tribulation sword. Its powerful sword spirit can't come out. Chuyang has to face an opponent from the whole world. To be honest, I've already forced Chuyang into a dead end. To be more realistic, I can't think of how Chuyang can deal with it myself. When I sent out this chapter, I was at my wit's end. Above, if I lie, may the heavens punish me. And I have to break through tomorrow. This stalemate. Do you have any good ideas? Chuyang's current situation is just like mine. I can't break through. I admit defeat in the monthly votes list. But if I break through, I still have a chance. Chapter 2103. The reason why he came in was indeed because he wanted to take advantage of the situation. He was very familiar with the terrain below, at least much more familiar than the others. He could disappear without a trace with just a turn. He could play hide and seek with the enemy. This was also the most advantageous environment for him that Chuyang could think of. And it was a chaotic mind. But now, he had fallen into a terrible situation where he couldn't even see his own fingers. This meant that both the enemy and himself were in such a situation. This was an absolutely fair environment. How could the great manor master chew fish in troubled waters? His cultivation was far inferior to any of the people who were chasing after him. To Chuyang, fighting in an absolutely fair environment was definitely the fastest way to die. Chuyang, who had lost a lot of his plans because of the sudden change, could only fall down like a weight in the darkness. Leaving this place quickly was the most important thing. Staying here would only lead to a faster death. However, his cursing alarmed another person. Well, to be more precise, it was actually not a person but a soul, the divine soul of the calamity. Originally, when the aura of the sword disappeared, the divine soul of the calamity was very happy. Well, I can finally go out for a walk? In the future, I can go out and come in whenever I want. This place was like my own backyard. Just as he was thinking about this wonderful place, a large group of people suddenly came in. Seeing this, the divine soul of the calamity was instantly stunned. Fuck, can't you let me have some peace and quiet? Why did such a large group of trash suddenly come in? Pooh, trash like you dare to set foot in my god source realm? Are you looking for death? But before the divine soul of the calamity could make a move, another group came in, and then another group, and another group, and another group and another group and another group. After these people came in, their actions were very similar. They were all shouting and yelling. Of course, there were all kinds of strange lines. Quick, quick. See where there are good things. Take them and leave quickly. Otherwise, when those super sects come in, we will have to hand over the treasures in our hands. We won't even be able to drink soup. Yes, yes. Quick, quick. Fuck, this is mine. What is this? Why is it yours? Do you think you will agree? Bastard. Take this. Bastard. Take this. Bang, 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 bang. Some people were running all over the mountains, some had broken bones from the fall, some were fighting, some were sneaking around. The tribulation divine soul was enraged. Motherfucker, do you really think this place is ownerless? Can I let you do whatever you want? In his fury, the aura of his spirit instantly spread out. In the blink of an eye, it had already enveloped the entire realm of the divine source. Not a single person was spared, and even the tunnel they had entered was spared. Immediately after, the divine soul of calamity led his zombies to start a massacre. It's one thing for those powerful existences to bully me, but even you bunch of ants dare to rob me. Fuck, do you really think I don't have a temper? The divine soul of calamity had a high level of cultivation, almost at the level of De and Ho. Moreover, this was his absolute home ground. The cultivation of these people who came down first was at least 10 levels lower than the divine soul of calamity. This was simply a one-sided massacre. No, saying that it was a massacre was an understatement. A large number of them fell down. Another large number of them fell down. He had just killed the last few and was searching everywhere for those who had escaped. In fact, it was very difficult to find any more. Because the aura of the spirit had spread out, it was equivalent to the entire realm of the divine source being filled with the puristine death aura. This was the most deadly killing weapon. Even if the divine soul of calamity did not do it personally, as long as they were not at the heavenly human realm, they would all die. However, at this moment, a loud curse was suddenly heard. Fuck. What's going on? The divine soul of calamity shuddered and almost burst into tears. This voice was too familiar. Little ancestor. Little ancestor came down again. Oh, I was worried that this little ancestor would be angry because I rejected him last time. How rare, he is really magnanimous. He hurriedly flew over. To living people, the Een death aura was not only a visual obstruction, it was also an extremely sharp killing weapon. However, to the divine soul of calamity, it was his most basic thing. Because he was annoyed by the sudden change, he did not care about anything else and unleashed his full power. This was actually a very wasteful action. However, now that so many people had been killed by him here, the Een death aura in this place became even thicker. As long as he could retrieve all of them, the divine soul of calamity would still benefit from it. In this realm of the divine source, there was no place that the divine soul of calamity was not familiar with. In an instant, he had already accurately located Chu Yang's position and floated over. He just happened to catch the great philanthropist Chu who was about to land. The divine soul of calamity was almost a little agitated as he said, "You came down again. Why are you still using the 10,000-pound hammer to fall down from above? I'm being chased now. I don't have to be afraid that I can't escape," Chu Yang said with difficulty. Then he realized, "Why are you so attentive today?" The divine soul of calamity had a fawning look on his face. "Didn't you ask me to go out with you last time? I've been thinking left and right these few days. After thinking about it, I really feel that following you is a glorious and great way out." Chu Yang was almost choked by his words. Fuck. What's going on? I'm already in such a miserable state now. I'm being surrounded by the heavenly Emperor Mo Yun's royal army. My life is also in the line of a breath. At such a time, there's actually someone who can take the initiative to come and seek refuge with me. It's a miracle, no, it's a miracle, and the one he's seeking refuge with is actually boasting of a glorious and great way out? To think that he could still be so flattering, so sincere and so sincere. This really makes this great village lord's little head unable to understand. Is this guy mocking me because he sees that I'm down and out? It really doesn't look like it. I'm conflicted, too conflicted. It's just that at such a critical moment, Chu Yang simply didn't have the leisure to consider more. His brain was operating at high speed. His eyes turned and he said, "Seeing that you're so sincere, I'll reluctantly accept you. First, let one of the zombies below you run and move. Let them think that I'm running." Okay. A piece of cake. The divine soul of Calamity was instantly extremely excited. This little ancestor has accepted me. Wow! My future is so bright, so brilliant and glorious. The first task must be completed well. The pitiful divine soul of Calamity didn't know at all how bright the future would be. Whether it would be brilliant and brilliant was absolutely unknown. But right now it was a huge trouble. The divine soul of Calamity was in high spirits. With a thought, a zombie below instantly started running at high speed. Pitter-patter. This series of sounds was extremely similar to a person running in the darkness. In fact, it also seemed to be so. Right at this moment, whooshing sounds rang out in the sky. The divine soul of Calamity was shocked. What's going on today? Why are they jumping down one by one? And why are they all using 10,000-pound hammers? Chuyang grinned. Now, I'll have to trouble you to move me to a safe place. Yes, yes, yes. The divine soul of Calamity respectfully moved this little ancestor to a corner. It's just a small matter. How is it troublesome? You're too polite, too polite. Mo Yunqian's people descended rapidly. As soon as they came out of the tunnel, they felt endless darkness in front of them. They couldn't even see their own fingers if they stretched out their hands. That was an extremely cold death energy. How could there be such a place? If it was an ordinary darkness, everyone could get used to it. But in the face of such cold death energy, there was nothing they could do. The strength of this group of people was not bad. They were at least at the peak of the saint level. Even if they were corroded by the cold death energy for a short period of time, there wouldn't be any big problem. But how big was the area covered by the cold death energy? Even with their cultivation, they would still be corroded if they stayed in an environment full of cold death energy for a long time. As long as they weren't at the heavenly human level, they definitely wouldn't be able to resist the corrosion for a long time. But to stop moving forward and even retreat? But to retreat was tantamount to disobeying a military order. There was only death for them. Just as he was at a loss of what to do, he suddenly heard the sound of running footsteps coming from below. There's only one person. The ink cloud guards and silver-armored soldiers came to this conclusion at the same time. Then who was this person? In such a situation there was only one person and he looked very flustered. That could only be Chuyang. Chuyang was running away. From the sound of it he could still run and wander around looking for a way out. His cultivation is not as high as ours. But he can still run after falling. Then what are we afraid of? As long as we caught Chuyang it would be a great achievement. In peacetime it was very difficult to make military achievements. But as long as we caught Chuyang this time, we would be helping Lord Heavenly Emperor take revenge. It was undoubtedly reaching the heavens in a single step. Everyone didn't slow down and descended with a rumble. Everyone fought to be the first, fearing that Chuyang would fall into the hands of others. As they fell they kept thanking Great General Meng and Commander Meng. He actually gave such a great opportunity to me. If I didn't grab it I could totally die in despair. One after another figures fell like meteors and entered the land of cold death at full speed. They entered the land of darkness where one couldn't even see their own fingers. All of them were in high spirits, gnashing their teeth and smug with success. It seemed that this passage wasn't very deep, everyone thought in their hearts. Then after a very short time, everyone started to panic a little. Oh my goodness. We used all our cultivation and used the 10,000-pound hammer to descend. This speed of descent was at least 10,000 times faster than usual. In other words, if a certain abyss was 10,000 feet deep, it would take almost 30 minutes to reach the bottom under normal circumstances. But if we used the 10,000-pound hammer, it would be in the blink of an eye. It would be the same time as jumping down 10 feet. How could it be the same? But now, even if it was a distance of 20,000 feet, it seemed that they should have landed. Why hadn't they touched the ground yet? If they fell to the ground at such a speed, oh, so annoying. I uploaded the third update, forgot to click the publish button. I was only focused on writing the fourth update. Now that I've finished writing, I've discovered that it's very troublesome, very troublesome, very troublesome, troublesome. Chapter 2104. The meaning behind the Divine Spirit's words was very clear. I'm definitely not afraid, but I'm afraid that you'll be implicated. If two saint-level powerhouses were to fight, wouldn't a mere saint-level powerhouse like you die if you were to bump into them? Wouldn't you be severely injured if you even brushed against them? Chuyang obviously thought of this too. He couldn't help but think of a countermeasure, but he couldn't think of a good way. The next moment he saw a wisp of black gas hovering over a certain place. Meng Wuya shouted. His body disappeared from his original spot and reappeared at the place where the black smoke was hovering. There was another burst of fighting sounds. Then he pulled out another zombie. This time he didn't ask again. Instead, he directly crushed the zombie. Then another wisp of black gas came out. The two wisps of black gas merged into one. It moved faster and floated to the third place. In the blink of an eye, Meng Wuya had destroyed 5 of the zombies. The divine spirit's face was a little ugly. Once Meng Wuya killed the first one, the life origin chi would automatically come to find its master, Meng Wuya. At that time he wouldn't be able to escape. He wasn't afraid of fighting, but what about Chu Yang? Go out quickly and take all the life origin energy. Then fight with him. He can't do anything to you anyway. Then find a chance to hide. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said, "It's not necessarily a bad thing to destroy all the zombies. As long as you take the life origin energy, then it'll be really troublesome for him to find you." The divine spirit nodded slowly. Although this was a last resort, it was the best solution at the moment. No, after Meng Wuya had defeated those 5 zombies, he didn't continue to look for the last one. Instead, he faced Chu Yang's hiding place and said indifferently, "Chu Yang, I know you are there. Come out, this old man wants to talk with you." Chu Yang's face tightened. Did he really find out? It didn't seem like he was playing tricks. But he didn't find out before. How did he find out now? There are only a few directions in this place. But this divine spirit's life origin energy deliberately avoided the direction you are in twice. So you must be here. Meng Wuya said lightly, "Come out. This old man promises that as long as you come out, I won't take advantage of this opportunity to deal with you. Even if we are enemies, there are some things that must be made clear before we settle our grudges." Meng Wuya's words were very sincere. But Chu Yang didn't dare to believe it. He didn't even believe a single word. At this moment, Yen Rushan suddenly said, "Chu Yang, come out. Don't worry, I'll be your witness." Since Great General Meng said so, then with Great General Meng's reputation, he would never lie to you. Meng Wuya frowned, then suddenly looked up and asked, "The Odes division? So you're Yen Rushan?" Yen Rushan smiled and nodded. "That's me." Meng Wuya's brother Yen Rushan's too. No wonder Yen Rushan made things difficult for him and even defended Chu Yang in front of everyone. Meng. Otherwise, they would incur the wrath of the entire Eastern Royal Heaven's heaven and earth oath. Yen Rushan's action was obviously a trick. Regarding this point, Mo Yuntian's generals all felt great hatred in their hearts. Just now, many of them were already prepared to kill Chu Yang the moment he appeared. At most, they would be punished by military law. At most, they would die. They wanted this person who had killed too many people to be one step ahead of them. But now, if they acted rashly, they would kill the great general and even everyone in Mo Yuntian. Chu Yang's mind turned at lightning speed. He had already made up his mind. So he slowly walked out. Since Yen Rushan said so, Chu Yang could only come out now. Moreover, he also wanted to see what kind of person Meng Wuya was. From this, he could deduce his character and devise the best escape route. Although he seemed to have the upper hand and was safe, now that his and the divine spirit's whereabouts had been exposed, even if the divine spirit could escape unscathed, he didn't have the confidence to escape. So, he might as well step down now. Now that he had Yen Rushan as his backing, he had the capital to deal with Meng Wuya. The ink cloud guards immediately surrounded him. Meng Wuya looked at Chu Yang with his sharp eyes and said lightly, "Blow the horn. Everyone in Mo Yuntian gather. Once the horn is blown, those who don't come will be executed immediately." Then, the bleak sound of a bugle horn was heard. All the silver-armored soldiers of the ink cloud guard gathered together in an extremely short time. Regardless of whether they were in the middle of a search or in the middle of a battle, they all returned to their teams regardless of whether they were willing or not. Many of them had already sustained injuries and wounds. In such a short time, many people had already lost their lives here. It could be seen that the major sects had tolerated this bunch of people to the extreme. Once they attacked, they directly greeted them with death without any intention of holding back. At this moment, when these people retreated, the people of the major sects also heaved a sigh of relief. They were still resentful. Glancing at them, they immediately suppressed their desire for revenge and rushed into the mountains to search for treasures. 10 years was not too late to take revenge. Now, it was more important to quickly search for treasures here. But this time it was definitely not over. "You people of Mo Yuntian are so tyrannical, we will remember you." Meng Wuya looked at Chu Yang with his sharp eyes and said lightly, "You are Chu Yang?" Chu Yang smiled amiably. "Of course. How dare you?" A general at the side shouted. It was really like thunder piercing the ear. "Don't be impatient." Meng Wuya stopped this subordinate and took a deep breath. He said, Then what about the divine spirit of the tribulation? Chu Yang smiled and said, what is the divine spirit of the tribulation? Meng Wuya stared at him for a long time and said, Chu Yang, although I am not going to beat around the bush, since there are some things that you don't want to say, I won't force you. But since you don't want to admit it, then I believe that you have nothing to do with the divine spirit of the tribulation. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. There was a huge trap in this sentence. If Chu Yang denied it, then in a while Meng Wuya would take action to deal with the divine spirit of the tribulation, and even use all of Mo Yuntian's forces to deal with the divine spirit of the tribulation. Chu Yang absolutely had no reason to intervene, and it was even more impossible to use the battle power of Donghuang Heaven to intervene. But if Chu Yang admitted that the divine spirit of the tribulation was his, then this realm of divine source would change from an ownerless land to Chu Yang's private territory. Then where did the treasures go? In other words, Chu Yang was equivalent to offending all the super sects in the world at the same time. No matter which of these two consequences, Chu Yang didn't want to bear the responsibility, especially the latter reason which he couldn't bear. Chu Yang thought about it in his heart, but his expression didn't change. He said, General Meng, if you have something to say, please say it. Great General Meng's method was undoubtedly shrewd and ruthless, but he misjudged one thing, a very important thing, and that was the strength of the divine spirit of the tribulation. Even if he gathered all of Mo Yuntian's battle power, he still wouldn't be able to annihilate the divine spirit of the tribulation. To put it bluntly, as long as it wasn't a peerless expert at the level of Juni Ho, it was impossible to cause any effective damage to the divine spirit of the tribulation. Even if Great General Meng's true strength was roughly on par with the divine spirit of the tribulation, even if he had the support of Mo Yuntian's army, his overall strength was still far superior to the divine spirit of the tribulation. Once they fought, the divine spirit of the tribulation would definitely not be his opponent, but the ones who would suffer in the end would still be the soldiers of Mo Yuntian. It was precisely because Chu Yang had communicated with the divine spirit of the tribulation earlier that he confirmed this point, that he could be so calm and confident. As long as Chu Yang could ensure his own safety, there was no need for Chu Yang to worry about the safety of the divine spirit of the tribulation. Meng Wuya said slowly, first I want to make it clear to you. This time it was our Mo Yuntian's Taiyuan path that was wrong first. Whether it was the kidnapping of your wife or you being forced to defend yourself, whether it was life or death, victory or defeat, it was all my fault. It was also natural for you to kill him. This point I have to make it clear in advance. He said heavily, I have been in charge of the military for hundreds of thousands of years. Although I have killed people like flies, at the very least I can still distinguish between right and wrong. Chu Yang's face revealed a heavy expression. I understand what you mean. No, you don't understand. Meng Wuya said, Taiyuan was killed, Lord Heavenly Emperor is extremely furious. So, even if this batch of people doesn't catch you, there will continue to be the next batch of people coming. If you don't die, this matter will definitely not be let go. Chu Yang nodded slowly. I can also foresee this point. In a distant place there was a sudden explosion of smoke. Meng Wuya saw it but did not take any action. These words on one hand were said for Chu Yang to hear, on the other hand, it was also said for the divine spirit of the tribulation. Don't think that just because you are helping Chu Yang we can't do anything. Don't think that Chu Yang's enemies are only people like me. Chu Yang's enemies were definitely not limited to these people in front of him. His real enemy was a heavenly emperor or a world. What kind of huge power was that? As long as you, the divine spirit of the tribulation, are not stupid, you should consider it carefully. The consequences of interfering in this matter. Are you sure you can afford it? The effect of these words was undoubtedly very big. The divine spirit of the tribulation was indeed shocked. In fact, he was even frightened. When he heard it just now, he was so shocked that he could not perfectly conceal his aura, to the extent that smoke burst out. Oh my God. So the little ancestor's enemy was actually Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun. Heavenly Limit Yuan. That was a big shot on par with Heavenly Emperor Shui Leihan of the East Royal clan. And this little ancestor was at odds with Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun, and even wanted to kill him. This was an irreconcilable enmity. I've just pledged my allegiance to this little ancestor, and he's already causing me such a huge problem? When he thought of this, the divine spirit of the tribulation almost wanted to cry. With the power of a divine spirit of the tribulation, to go against the entire world of Mo Yun. Chapter 2105. The people behind Chu Yang all kept their mouths tightly shut. Everyone knew that this was an extremely dangerous situation. If they were discovered by the enemy, it would mean that there was no more luck. At this time, everyone followed their previous agreement and spontaneously distanced themselves from each other. The team was instantly divided into 4 groups. Time passed little by little. Night had already fallen, but the fire that had spread for thousands of miles had lit up this originally dark space as if it was daytime. The time it took for a stick of incense to burn passed in the blink of an eye. At the back on the fire field, someone shouted in surprise, "General Meng, here there are 3 corpses." Meng Wuya was startled and immediately went over. They are the disciples of those 2 sections. All of them were beheaded by a sword. Meng Wuya observed the corpses. He raised his head and pondered carefully. Then he said decisively, "This should be the process of their escape. Because of something, they were beheaded by Chu Yang in public as a warning to others. If that's the case, they should have already escaped before the fire started. Otherwise, these 3 people would not have been beheaded because of some kind of resistance. So, they are most likely not in the grassland area now." Everyone crossed the fire field at full speed. The whole army is in pursuit. But why did they resist? It is because the previous series of movements were too tiring. And this grassland gives people a rare sense of security. Although this sense of security is just a false package, it is real. Since they have already killed people because of this fleeing team should be on the verge of falling apart. After all, they are just a team that was forcefully put together for the same purpose. They lack the basic run-in and will not be able to achieve anything big. Meng Wuya was carried over the raging fire in a soft bag. He said indifferently, "Since that's the case, our men are coming from the opposite direction. We have to cut off their escape route. We can capture them all in one fell swoop and finish the job in one fell swoop." Hearing this, the 5,000 people's spirits were lifted. Their speed increased sharply. The opportunity to complete the mission was in front of them. Naturally, they chased with all their might. Chu Yang's original black clothes were now filled with other colors. While he was moving forward, he was suddenly startled. He suddenly stopped moving forward. Not only him, but among the 117 people, there were 100 people who showed the same expression. There were people in front. In fact, it wasn't just the front that was approaching. People were approaching from all directions. By the time they discovered the enemy, the inky cloud guards had also discovered them. Suddenly someone shouted, "There's someone in front. It should be the target murderer. Charge." Enemies from all directions were quickly gathering towards them. For a time the atmosphere was incomparably heavy. There were enemies ahead and pursuers behind. The situation was so bad that it had reached the extreme. "The 4th team." Chu Yang shouted coldly. The 48 members of the 4th team took a step forward. Originally there were 50 people. But 2 of them had been killed by Chu Yang. So there were only 48 people left now. Chu Yang looked deeply at these people and said in a low voice, "There's no way forward. Please open the way. Please." The remaining 140 people bowed at the same time. "Please." These 48 people all revealed a smile of relief on their faces and said, "Everyone have a safe journey. Let's fight side by side in our next life." Suddenly, with a long howl, the 48 people brazenly rushed out. Everyone had a resolute expression on their faces as they stood amidst the lingering smoke. No matter what, he had to fight for the people he protected, even if he had to sacrifice himself. He had to sacrifice himself to the greatest extent. At this time, 1 to 200 black cloud guards had already gathered here and were rushing over. The others were also rushing over at full speed. A long howl shook the night sky. "We found Chu Yang." In the distance, there were also countless cries echoing in response. At this moment, the 48 people team was already like a giant bomb, howling as they rushed into the ink cloud guards formation. Both sides had only just come into contact, and in the blink of an eye, huge roars rang out one after another. Blood suddenly became the main color of this night. Screams became the main theme of this night that was destined to not be peaceful. "Those who don't die, leave your lives behind." Both sides had just come into contact, and a desperate situation of fighting for their lives was formed. Especially the people on Chu Yang's side, they were even more determined to die. Their words of wanting to break through the path ahead even if they had to die instantly intimidated their opponents. These people were all elites of super sections. In terms of strength, they were not weaker than the ink cloud guards and even surpassed them. Although their numbers were relatively small, everyone was fighting with their lives on the line. Their sharpness was unparalleled. Sabers and swords formed a forest. One of the Iron Sword sect's experts rushed forward to meet the incoming swords. With a hoarse laugh he said, Brother, don't forget, this old man still has a great-grandson at home. Aha, I'll leave everything to you. One of the enemy's swords chopped off his left hand, but he was still smiling. The sword in his right hand had already pierced into the throat of an ink cloud guard. However, the moment the enemy was killed, his right hand holding the sword was also chopped off by the enemy. But he seemed not to have noticed it and continued to rush forward. Those were pieces of flesh that were cut off by Chuyang. Chuyang only felt a chill on his shoulder, and a large piece of his flesh flew out just like that. A sword suddenly shot over with great momentum and power. Chuyang didn't stop. He maintained the momentum of flying, and with a shake of his hand, he used the move, one ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms. 10,000 rays of cold light flashed out. That ink cloud guard had no room to resist at all. He fell down without a sound and blood spurted out from his body. Due to the urgency of time, Chuyang didn't use the latest calamity sword technique that the sword spirit had practiced recently. Although the power of that sword technique was even more powerful, he hadn't really comprehended it yet after all. If he used it rashly, there would definitely be some delay. And now there was no room for any delay. Therefore, Chuyang used the move that he was already familiar with. But the moment he used it, he immediately realized that the power of this sword technique was far from what it had been in the past. Its power had increased to an extent that Chuyang had never imagined before. It must be known that although Chuyang hadn't completely comprehended the new fused sword technique, his understanding of the original sword technique had unknowingly improved by another level. Although there was only a difference of one level, the difference in power was like the difference between heaven and earth. Puff, 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 Chuyang's body didn't stop at all. He rushed forward like a hurricane. At this moment he didn't know what injuries and fatigue were. There was only one thought in his mind: rush out. I must rush out. The battle had only been going on for a short while, but he didn't know how many enemies he had encountered, how many he had killed, and how many weapons he had broken. The people behind him followed closely. On both sides, there were shadows constantly slashing long swords and broadswords at lightning speed. This team that was rushing out was also constantly losing members. As long as someone's leg was injured, he would immediately leave the team and rush towards the opponent who had injured him, and die by self-explosion. With two clangs, two broken swords suddenly flew up to the sky. Two burly figures staggered back on both sides. Chuyang roared and rushed forward in a straight line. There was only one ink cloud guard left in front of him, and he was the last one. Chapter 2106. Chuyang realized that for at least half a day, Meng Wuya's Mo Yun Tian was very big. The army was quiet. This rare silence made him feel a little surprised. Could it be that those guys were so tired that they couldn't chase anymore? Calculating the distance, Chuyang also felt a little scared. Although the actual distance was not very far, and they had been going back and forth in the forest for 4,000 to 5,000 miles, the distance traveled during this time was already very scary. They had run no less than 70,000 to 80,000 miles on foot. And in the rain, in the mountains, in the battle. Everyone was constantly in a state of high concentration. Such a hard day was not something that an ordinary person could bear. Even if it was a saint or a heavenly being expert, under the pressure of dying at any time and in such bad weather, continuously running for 70,000 to 80,000 miles, that was undoubtedly a test of one's mental and physical toughness. Not to mention that they had to participate in fierce battles at any time. Everyone should have rested enough, right? Chuyang straightened his back and looked at everyone. This was also the longest time he had rested during this escape. Not only did he have a full meal, but he also had time to use his cultivation to boil hot water, wash his wounds and reapply medicine and bandage them. They even had time to take a light nap. This was simply a miracle. Everyone had not slept for more than half a month. This nap was really needed. Even though everyone had already reached the level where they could replace sleep with fasting and meditation, but to be able to sleep comfortably was still very necessary for the recovery of the human body. Especially in such a sleepy situation. Hearing Chuyang's words, everyone stood up. 33 people. In the past continuous fierce battles they had only lost 3 people. Let's go. Chuyang sighed softly. Looking at everyone's mental state, it seemed that they were not bad. Manor Lord, there is movement over there. Che Shuchu called out. In fact, without waiting for him to shout, everyone raised their heads and looked at the sky with a dignified expression. There was a buzzing sound as well as an overwhelming sense of oppression. All these signs indicated one thing. Mo Yun Tian's flying boat was coming. Chuyang, Bai Yu Qin, Che Su Chu and the other quick-witted people all frowned. At this time the role of the airship wasn't very big. Why would someone as experienced as Meng Wuya use the airship at this time? Chu Yang frowned and said, "Go in the direction where the flying boat landed." The 33 people didn't raise any objections. The group of people had already transformed into sharp arrows the moment Chu Yang's words left his mouth, and shot into the rain. If it was in the past, there would definitely be people who would object. If you go where the flying boat came from, wouldn't you be walking right into a trap? But now, everyone didn't even have this question. They didn't even think about it. Whatever Chu Yang said they would do. In any case, Chu Yang was absolutely right. Even if they were really wrong, they would accept it. What should he do? Ambush on the other side? Meng Wuya was also thinking hard about this problem. Which side would Chu Yang choose after seeing the flying boat? Should I choose the opposite side? Or choose another direction? Or should they simply advance towards the defensive line where the flying boats came from? Meng Wuya thought over and over again, but still couldn't make up his mind. In the end, he could only grit his teeth and say, "Set up an ambush in the direction of the flying boat." The continuous drizzle in the sky finally became heavier, as if it was pouring down. These days it had been rainy and foggy with occasional light drizzles. But now it suddenly became a downpour pouring down. The sky was densely covered with dark clouds. It was already late autumn and the wind was blowing. But there wasn't much lightning or thunder accompanying it. Chu Yang led people and carefully advanced towards the flying boat hovering in the sky. This operation could be said to be a huge risk. If the other party was ambushing on the other side, then Chu Yang would attack the flying boat cleanly, rob a flying boat and escape directly. Although he had never seen such a thing before, there were a lot of people around him who knew how to operate it. These people were all from super sects, so they would have some foundation, and there was no lack of high-tech things like flying boats. But if the other party happened to be ambushing here, then he would be walking right into the trap. Chu Yang's face was calm, but his heart was filled with anxiety. Because his compression of spiritual energy had already reached a limit. Now, his meridians and dantian were already close to burning. A breakthrough would come at any time and he couldn't control it at all. Once it broke out at a certain time, everything would be over. If he forcibly suppressed it and didn't break through, the result would be that he would explode. He would also be finished and die even faster. In the blink of an eye, 100 miles of peace had quietly passed under their feet. The flying boat in the sky had already begun to descend slowly. Chu Yang's actions were even more cautious. In different directions, all of the ink cloud guards and silver-armored soldiers were also extremely careful as they circled around in this direction. The heavy rain poured down from the sky as if it didn't cost anything. Chu Yang and the others were also a little excited. As long as they snatched this flying boat, everyone would be able to escape easily, until they completely bid farewell to this damned life of escape. But if the robbery didn't succeed and the enemy was lying in ambush here, then everyone could only laugh bitterly. And the people on Mo Yuntian's side were mostly puzzled. Chu Yang wouldn't happen to be coming this way, right? According to common sense, the place where the flying boat landed was the most heavily guarded place. Chu Yang should have chosen another direction to escape. Under such inexplicable thoughts, the two sides were rapidly approaching each other. More than 1,000 ink cloud guards and silver-armored soldiers were also slowly completing the encirclement. And Chu Yang's team was oblivious to the fact that they were drilling into the enemy's encirclement. If there were others who clearly saw the movement of the two sides, they would definitely be so nervous that they would suffocate. Once they came into contact, it would be a life-and-death struggle. It would either be a fish dying or a net breaking. But from the looks of it, it was already impossible to avoid contact with it. The two sides were already within 20 miles of each other. At this speed, it would take at most 3 to 5 breaths of time for the two sides to come into contact. Close combat. Suddenly, Chu Yang seemed to see a little light in the pouring rain. His heart skipped a beat. With a wave of his hand, the team neatly crouched behind him. Then, everyone's faces revealed an indescribable wry smile. They had finally encountered it. The other side also sensed it at the same time. A long roar shook the rain. The target is here. Then countless people shouted at the same time. Here. Here. In the rain, densely packed figures rose into the air at the same time. There were people in all directions. Chu Yang and the others were completely surrounded by Mo Yuntian's army in an instant. 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside, the area where Chu Yang and the others were hiding was completely surrounded. This was an unprecedentedly bad situation. In the previous encounters and ambushes, no matter how bad it was, there was still a chance of survival that could be exploited. But this time there was completely no blind spot, no gap. Manor Lord, looks like we have to fight for the world in the underworld. Bai Yu-chen laughed bitterly. To be able to fight alongside Manor Lord for such a period of time in this life? I have no regrets in this life. No regrets in this life. 33 people bowed at the same time. Manor Lord, it has always been Manor Lord who has been the vanguard, leading us to escape. But this time, please allow us to risk our lives and protect Manor Lord for once. Chu Yang's heart heated up. Looking at the enemy swarming in from all directions, an unprecedented feeling of oppression rose in his heart. Then it turned into anger. My judgment this time was actually wrong? Are we really going to be forced into a dead end? I am not willing. I am not willing. Since we are already in a dead end, I will break out of this dead end and seek life in death. Chu Yang laughed. He who was originally in a sorry state and covered in mud, suddenly straightened his back. Although he was still filthy, he looked even more dignified. If we must die, I will bring all of you along with me. But now it is not the time to die yet. Have you forgotten what I said earlier? No matter what, do not say the word death so easily. Chu Yang smiled lightly. We still have a chance. Now, let us magnify this chance infinitely and turn passive into active. Everyone was stunned. The situation in front of them was already so bad. How could Chu Yang still say that there was a chance? Where was there a chance? How were they going to turn passive into active? At this moment, everyone simultaneously felt an unprecedented surge of dense spiritual energy. An infinitely violent aura surged out from Chu Yang's body. In this desperate and hopeless moment, Chu Yang finally stopped suppressing himself. He completely let go of his suppression of spiritual energy. The turbulent flow of spiritual energy, which had long been suppressed to the extreme, instantly surged out. In a flash, it passed through all the meridians in Chu Yang's body. Everyone was surprised to find that the wounds on Chu Yang's body were completely healed in an instant. The extremely rich and pure spiritual energy formed a special whirlpool above Chu Yang's head and around his body. It actually made a humming sound. A surge of breakthrough aura surged out from Chu Yang's body. Breakthrough? Everyone, including Bai Yu-chen, was dumbfounded. Breakthrough, this word or this scene, was not unfamiliar to everyone present. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a common occurrence. However, after being hunted down for a long time, Chu Yang unexpectedly made a breakthrough. And he made a breakthrough at this critical juncture. This could not be said to be a rare miracle. But then everyone's heart sank. Even if you break through, you are at most a beginner heavenly being level. And a heavenly being level could not change the situation in front of them at all. The whirlpool around Chu Yang grew bigger and bigger, gradually forming a spiritual energy storm. The range of the breakthrough aura seemed to be bigger and bigger, wider and wider. Chapter 2107. Oh, what do you mean? Li Xiong-tu looked at him in confusion. In this Heaven Imperial Court, both you and I are outsiders. This is not the Heaven Imperial Court. Our cultivation is more than enough to dominate the Chongtian continent, but in this place, we are basically nothing. Chu Yang said softly, so here I am no longer the Calamity Sword Master. I'm not even a top expert. There are too many experts in this world. We must know our place. Otherwise we will suffer a great loss. Chu Yang said softly but seriously. Li Xiong-tu was silent for a while and said, Thank you for your advice. Li Xiong-tu's words were sincere and sincere. Because he himself knew that his words just now had exposed his somewhat arrogant mentality. That sentence, who is it that can make you so embarrassed? At first it didn't sound like a big deal. But in fact it already regarded Chu Yang as a top expert. If Chu Yang was already a top expert, what position did Li Xiong-tu place himself in? This top expert strength might even be measured by Chu Yang's level in the Heaven Imperial Court. If Li Xiong-tu kept this attitude, as Chu Yang said, he would definitely suffer a great loss. Even suffering a great loss was an understatement. There was a risk of death at every turn. You'd better not get involved in the enemy I'm facing this time. You don't even need to know. Chu Yang smiled. When I'm a little better, I'll leave immediately. Brother Li, I'm already very grateful for your help this time. Li Xiong-tu's face darkened. Chu Yang, are you looking down on me? Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said seriously, Brother Li, we've known each other for a long time. When have I ever looked down on you? But this time the enemy is really too strong. And the enemy's forces are really too big. If you get involved rashly, I will have more scruples. Chu Yang's words were very straightforward. He even told Li Xiongtu directly that if he got involved, not only would he not be of help to him, but he would also be a burden. If he didn't cause trouble, he would be helping. They had never been close friends, but Chu Yang understood Li Xiongtu's temperament very well. If he didn't get rid of Li Xiongtu's idea, Li Xiongtu would definitely not give up and would definitely get involved. That would truly be harming him. However, Li Xiongtu was so worried that he frowned. He said in a low voice, "Chu Yang, did you provoke some of the top-ranked super sects in the Heaven Imperial Court this time?" Chu Yang smiled bitterly. "If it was only a super sect, I would have been more relaxed. At least I would have had the strength to deal with them. But the enemy I provoked this time is 10 times or even 100 times more terrifying than a super sect. Even this comparison is the most conservative estimate." Li Xiongtu sucked in a breath of cold air. Meng Huanhuan covered her mouth, her face full of shock. After a long while, Li Xiongtu said cautiously, "Could it be that you are... What I provoked this time is the entire Ink Cloud Heaven, and even the Master of Ink Cloud Heaven, Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud himself?" Chu Yang said straightforwardly. Li Xiongtu rubbed his eyebrows with 2 fingers and smiled bitterly. "I say, Chu Yang, no matter how audacious you are, aren't you playing too big this time? What did you do to make the entire Ink Cloud Heaven hunt you down?" Chu Yang grinned. "Actually, I didn't do anything. I just killed the son of Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud, that's all." Li Xiongtu staggered and almost fell to the ground. He stabilized his body with great difficulty, but he was already speechless. "I have to admit, this enemy I oldly really can't handle it now. If I don't do this, I can't." Li Xiongtu looked conflicted. Chu Yang almost laughed out loud. "Isn't that so? I admit that I can't handle it either. Damn it." After listening to Chu Yang's explanation of the cause and effect, Li Xiongtu punched his own thigh and said angrily, Good kill. A bastard like this deserves to be killed. Motherfucker, that Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud Yuan Tianjia really doesn't know any better. Brother Chu's actions were clearly to help him clean up his family. He should be grateful to you, but he actually sent troops to kill him. This is simply repaying kindness with enmity. It's unreasonable." Chu Yang was flabbergasted. He stared at Li Xiongtu in a flabbergasted manner. He had been stunned by the words of this guy. What kind of person is this? I seem to have said it very clearly just now. It's me who killed his son. How can he be grateful to me, and even if I know that you're speaking on my side, it doesn't make sense. The hatred of killing is irreconcilable. If he really wants to thank me for helping him clean up his family, would I dare to believe it? Of course not. Even if he doesn't find trouble with me, I'll have to be on tenterhooks for the rest of my life. That feeling is probably even more terrifying than him directly finding trouble with me. Being on tenterhooks for the rest of my life, just thinking about it is scary. Oh, am I crazy, or is Li Xiongtu crazy? How did he come up with such words? As he spoke, Chu Yang acutely felt an endless numbness all over his body. This was a good sign. The appearance of this feeling meant that his wounds were about to heal. After waking up, Chu Yang didn't take any heavy pills to recover his body. Every time he survived the heavenly punishment, as long as he was still alive, he would be blessed by the heavens. At such a time, the energy of the heavens and earth would be infused into his body, and he would be reborn. If he rashly used heavy pills, it would be a waste. Any waste now would be shameful, and the consequences would be severe. Just as Li Xiongtu was dumbfounded, he saw the many terrifying wounds on Chu Yang's chest healing bit by bit. Then the wounds formed scabs and the scabs fell off. Chu Yang's skin recovered as if he was never injured, and was as smooth as jade. At the same time, the whistling spiritual energy in Chu Yang's body was also stimulated. It gradually pushed forward and then reconnected all the broken meridians. It surged through his meridians like a tsunami. Chu Yang could feel that his injuries were gradually recovering with each cycle. Moreover, his cultivation had also advanced by a step. With a thought, he opened up his inner vision. To his surprise, he found that his meridians were now as wide as the Yangtze River. The flow of the vital energy in his meridians was no longer in the form of mist like before. Instead, it had added a lot of pale golden colors. It came and went with a whistling sound, like the endless waves on the sea, going back and forth in an endless cycle. Also, his dantian had obviously expanded as well. Another change was the primordial real silk in his dantian. There was now a big bundle in each of his dantians. Originally, Chu Yang could still count clearly. There was one more. Yes, there were 3 more, but now he couldn't even count them. It was really a pleasant surprise. Even though the tribulation space was still quiet, the rich and pure spiritual energy was still flowing into his dantian. However, his dantian was now empty. Even though there was a huge amount of spiritual energy flowing into his dantian, it did not seem to be able to change anything. He no longer felt the sense of crisis of being filled to the brim and was about to burst. Heavenly Man level. Although it was only a beginner level. But he had still entered the Heavenly Man level. He could be considered to have officially stepped into the level of first-class experts. Chu Yang breathed a sigh of relief. He had finally crossed the threshold of the Heavenly Man level. On the path of cultivation he had taken another big step forward. Chu Yang, what level have you reached in your current cultivation? Is it Earth level? Or even higher? You should be reaching Heaven level soon, right? Li Xiongtu asked Chu Yang as he roasted meat. Chu Yang had already changed out of his black clothes. He sat beside Li Xiongtu and watched him roast meat. Meng Huanhuan had gone to pick wild vegetables. It's okay. Slightly higher than Heaven level, say. Chu Yang replied. Higher than Heaven level? Don't tell me you already have Saint level cultivation? How is that possible? You've only been here for a few days. Li Xiongtu really couldn't believe Chu Yang's words. No, I'm not a Saint level anymore. Oh, I know. Are you at Heaven level now? Or higher level? Haha, my current cultivation is just one word higher than Heaven level. What is your cultivation level? Can you tell me directly? Well, okay. I should have just reached Heavenly Man level, just one word higher than Heaven level. Chu Yang said casually, hurry up and roast it. I'm starving, Pa. Half a rabbit fell from Li Xiongtu's hand and fell into the fire with a bang. Such good rabbit meat. How can I waste it like this? Chu Yang hurriedly scooped it out and said with heartache. But he didn't hear Li Xiongtu's response. Chu Yang turned around and saw Li Xiongtu staring at him as if he had seen a ghost. Heavenly Man level. Cough cough. Chu Yang realized that he had unintentionally acted a little pretentious. It was the kind that deserved a beating. You. Are you still human? Li Xiongtu was so aggrieved that he wanted to die. I've been cultivating so hard and even had such great opportunities, but I'm still only at the Heaven stage. But you've already surpassed the Heaven stage, Saint stage, and reached the Heaven stage? Is there such a thing as slightly higher, and one word lower? Cough cough. I'm actually fine. It's just that my opportunities are a little better. Chu Yang was speechless and didn't dare to say anything more. If he had known that Li Xiongtu would be beaten black and blue by him, he would have hidden a little more. Li Xiongtu was shocked for a while. Then he came back to his senses. He laughed and said, that's great. I have a new goal. He laughed heartily. I've been chasing all of you, chasing Mo Tianji Gudu Xing Dong Wushang, but I never caught up. It's good that I didn't catch up. If I did, I'm afraid I'll slack off. I'll let all of you run in front. It's also a kind of fun for me to keep chasing. His voice was full of heroism. There was no hint of disappointment at all. Chapter 2108. Reorganize the team and be on guard. When the hook-nosed old man said those words, he realized that his voice was actually trembling. Rather than saying that he was warning others, it was more like he was warning himself that the terrifying enemy could appear again at any time. If he didn't want to die, he had to be careful at all times. Following this shout, the large group of people came back to their senses. After calming down from the shock, everyone's faces were filled with fear. They gathered together and whispered to each other with pale faces. Looking at the messy corpses on the ground, they were all old friends who were talking and laughing with them just a moment ago. For a moment, everyone felt a sense of sadness. But now, strangely, the sadness was not strong. Instead, it was fear and worry for their future that took over their hearts. Or it could also be said that when these people crossed oceans and mountains to come here to kill their old elders and old brothers, that kind of friendship that they once cherished had long disappeared from their hearts, right? Once there was no love, no one's life was more important than their own in their eyes. When the team set off again, the atmosphere was much gloomier than before. Looking at the gate of Lone Bamboo City not far away, it was like looking at a demon with its mouth wide open, waiting for a chance to devour. Once they entered the city, they would have to face the assassination of their enemies at any time. Facing such a gloomy atmosphere, the leader of the team, the hook-nosed elder, could not do anything. He even had such thoughts. But as the leader of the team, he had to do it. He said loudly, "Everyone, let's hurry up. As long as we meet up with the other two sects, everything will be fine." Everyone was shocked. As long as they met up, their manpower would multiply, and their chances of survival would increase as well. They immediately quickened their pace. But at this moment another change occurred. From the back of the team, a black shadow with a magnificent sword light rushed over. This time there was no greeting at all. The last time was a surprise attack, this time was a real sneak attack. The terrifying executioner who had just chiseled through the entire team and left successfully did not really leave. In fact, after he succeeded in his first attack, he didn't even pause for long before he launched a second round of attacks. Chiseling through, it was still chiseling through. The sneak attack this time was even more abrupt than the first time. This was completely out of everyone's expectations. Only when this sword light of death was only 1 or 2 feet away from the crowd did someone notice it. Enemy attack. The person who screamed was at the front of the group, but he only had time to shout out before he was instantly crushed by the dazzling sword light. A black shadow with a sharp sword light pierced into the crowd from the back of the group with an unstoppable force. Blood rained down from the sky without stopping. In the blink of an eye, he had already reached the front of the group. The piercing motion from behind was completed once again. How dare you? You've gone too far. The hook-nosed old man was infuriated by this second sneak attack. He disregarded everything and used his sword to block the attack head-on. At this moment he was actually stimulated to the point of risking his life. Dang dang dang. A savage laughter rang out. The hook-nosed old man was shocked and quickly retreated. There was already a cut on his chest from the sword chi. His clothes were torn apart. If he had not retreated in such a hurry, this sword would have sliced open his stomach. As for the sword in his hand, only the hilt was left. The black-robed man snorted and said coldly, "Good sword. Good reaction. Good cultivation." After being obstructed by the hook-nosed old man, the unstoppable momentum of the black-robed man finally slowed down a little. In the instant that his body seemed to fall, he swung his sword in a circle and cut the 2 saint-level experts beside him into 8 pieces. Then a magnificent sword light flickered again, and like a hurricane, he disappeared from the city gate. He only left behind a cold sentence, "Everyone, let's meet in the city." Before he finished his sentence, he had already disappeared without a trace. The hook-nosed old man looked at the sword hilt in his hand dumbfoundedly. Looking at the 3 pieces of the sword on the ground, his hands and feet turned cold. This was the divine weapon that had accompanied him for his entire life. It was known as one of the 10 great swords of Mo Yin Tian and ranked 4th among the 10 great swords of Mo Yin Tian. But facing the opponent's sword, it had only clashed 3 times and it had already been cut into 4 pieces. Even with such a sword, the opponent actually praised it. Good sword. Good sword? Then what kind of sword was the opponent's sword? Heavenly sword? Divine sword? Or some other sword? Great Elder. Among the group there was a wave of wailing. Another 150 or so people lost their lives under this sword strike. The Great Elder's body trembled. He only felt as if a cold poisonous snake was crawling on his back. For a moment his hair stood on end. This time, looking at the corpses and broken limbs all over the ground, he could not even feel angry. At this rate it would not take much. At most 3 to 5 more times and these people would all be finished. The Great Elder's right hand loosened and the hilt of the broken sword fell to the ground. Suddenly he felt a burst of weakness all over his body. Chu Yang, bathed in blood, disappeared from Lone Bamboo City. After a few turns, even the divine senses that had been following him could not keep up with his speed. He actually got rid of them easily. With a creak, the door of a house suddenly opened. A waxen-faced, hunchbacked young man walked out. It could be seen that this young man was seriously ill. After taking 2 steps, he would start coughing violently. Opposite was a pharmacy. The young man walked in trembling. He put on 3 bags and took out a few Shuiyun coins to buy a bag of medicine. Then he walked out gratefully. The shop assistant in the pharmacy could not help but sigh sympathetically. This young man was seriously ill with tuberculosis. These days he had been barely holding on. But now he had reached the point where he could no longer hold on. It looked like he was about to die. These few days he had come to get medicine every day to suppress his illness. The shop assistant had told him that there was no hope, but he still persisted and refused to give up. Perhaps he really could not hold on tomorrow? But there were many pitiful people like him in the world. This was only a pharmacy, not a charity hall. Most importantly, he was not the boss. Even if he had the heart, he would not be able to do it. The young man walked back to the shabby house. He carefully closed the door and began to boil the medicine. Not long after, the smell of medicine wafted. Then he staggered into the room with the medicine. The sound of drinking medicine could be heard, mixed with constant coughing. A few telepathic thoughts circled around the room in the pharmacy. They seemed to be listening to the discussion of the shop assistants. Then they disappeared. The telepathic thoughts in the air were communicating, "It shouldn't be here. Isn't it here? That's strange. Why would it suddenly disappear after reaching here? This matter is very strange. Let's search other places. Anyway, this person must be in Lone Bamboo City. That person had clearly shown himself before. How could he disappear in the blink of an eye? He is clearly not a saint. How could he easily get rid of our divine senses? Let's search again. I'll go south and you go north. Then I'll go east and you go west. Okay." In the shabby house, the young man with tuberculosis was still coughing. Then he put down the bowl. His eyes faintly flashed a cold light. This young man was one of Chu Yang's many identities in Lone Bamboo City. As soon as he entered, Chu Yang began to manage these identities. Now he had achieved initial results. At least, when he disguised himself as such, he was absolutely safe. That hook-nosed man is really impressive. He injured my internal organs with one sword attack. His strength is indeed far above mine. Chu Yang thought, if it wasn't for the fact that the Calamity Sword is unparalleled in the world, I'm afraid I would have really failed miserably this time. Feeling the unbearable pain in his chest, Chu Yang took a deep breath and silently used the heaven-splitting divine technique to relieve the injury. Normally, whether it was the chi of medicine or the spring of life, they could easily heal this kind of injury. If he was more extravagant, he could just take a heavy pill and everything would be fine. But now time was not on his side. He had temporarily lost his greatest trump card, and could only use the most basic healing methods. Fortunately, the layered heaven divine art was extraordinarily effective, and with the support of endless dense spiritual energy, this serious injury would be healed in a few hours at most. In this Lone Bamboo City, why did two saint-level experts suddenly appear? Chu Yang frowned. Which side do these two belong to? If they belong to Demon Emperor Sky, then it's better. If they belong to the Black Cloud Sky Army or the hidden experts of the three big sects, then it's really bad. In the future, I must be more careful. I can't afford to be injured now. However, what harm is there in using the sword aura to massacre the entire world? It is truly too sharp. I feel that the power of this sword has not been fully unleashed. If its full power can be unleashed, how powerful will it be? I'm really looking forward to it. Chu Yang's eyes flashed as he thought carefully. What he didn't know was that the entire Lone Bamboo City was currently in a state of unprecedented shock. In the morning, after the people of the three big sects received the news, they all rushed over. They had already gathered nearby, so it was not difficult for them to rush over. However, when they truly saw the corpses and remains that were neatly arranged on the ground, all of the spectators couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Many of them had tears welling up in their eyes. Among these corpses, how many were acquaintances? Relatives? Brothers? They traveled tens of thousands of miles to come here, but they never had the chance to go back. Facing the ground full of corpses, thousands of people fell into an unimaginable silence. Just who was so crazy and cruel? Something unexpected happened today. The game company gave me a picture of Ling Tian. I happily uploaded it. Then I wrote a sentence. I uploaded Ling Tian. Everyone see if it looks like him. Then I sent it. Then I realized that the words in the picture didn't match. It could only be the words or it could only be the picture. Now the words have been uploaded, but the picture hasn't. Chapter 2109. A crazy executioner had slaughtered so many people in one night, and there had been no news of it at all. The city lord of Lone Bamboo City in Yao Emperor's heaven was livid. In one night, such a shocking case had happened under his rule. Reporting to the city lord, the count is clear. There are a total of 187 corpses here. A young man said softly, including the 324 people outside the city, there are 1,311 corpses. Among these corpses, 210 belong to the Ghost Hunter, 550 belong to the Iron Sword sect, and the rest belong to the Ice sect. There are 412 corpses. All of them are from the sects? Then this is clearly a vendetta in Jianghu. The city lord's words determined the nature of this case. As long as it wasn't a murderous maniac, it was fine. The other party clearly had a target. This way, the responsibility of the government would be reduced to the minimum. The city lord's words almost drove the three sects crazy. What does the city lord of Lone Bamboo City mean by this? Bleach yourself? In other words, this is a vendetta in Jianghu. You have nothing to do with it? You want us three sects to deal with it ourselves? Of course, Jianghu's grudges are Jianghu's grudges, but we can't handle it right now. Even if the dead are Jianghu people, they are still people from the sections. There are still many lives, aren't there? You're just going to ignore it. Under normal circumstances, Jianghu's matters are Jianghu's matters. Both sides don't welcome the intervention of the government. However, the current situation was very strange. The other party was too ferocious. It had already exceeded the scope of what the three great sects could handle. Originally, he wanted to use this matter to find more help, but now, it seemed that the city lord was going to slip away. The city lord seemed to have received an important piece of news. Then he said a few words sanctimoniously, excused himself and turned around to leave. He left as if he was floating in the air. We are all friends. It is natural for us to help each other. Since you are here, I will naturally give you the green light. As long as you don't provoke any criticism from the people, I will do my best to help you. But I just received a secret order from my superiors. I need to deal with it immediately. Goodbye. If there's anything you want to do, feel free to do so. Just like that, after a bunch of nonsense that seemed pretty on the surface but was actually completely useless, he instantly slipped away and disappeared without a trace. The three sects were so angry that smoke was coming out of their heads. What should we do? What should we do now? The leaders gathered together with a worried look on their faces. These people had been fighting for positions in their respective sects in the Black Cloud Sky continent. They had been fighting each other for hundreds of thousands of years. Between them there was a blood debt and they could not live under the same sky. Everyone's heart felt very strange. However, for the survival of his own sect, he had no choice but to do so. The current situation was not complicated at all. It could even be said that it was very clear. There was only one person on the other side. As long as they could deal with this person, everything would be settled. But this person's strength was ridiculously high. According to the hawk-nosed elder's description, this person's strength was at least at the peak of the heaven being level. His moves were superb, and he even had an indestructible sword as support. His killing power was so strong that it was almost impossible to estimate. If it was a one-on-one fight, most of the people here would just be sending themselves to death. At least he was also at the peak of the heaven being level. Doesn't that mean that he could be a saint-level expert? Of course, this was to a certain extent an overestimation by the hawk-nosed elder. Chu Yang's strength did not seem to be that exaggerated. The current situation is that each sect has dispatched at least 2,500 elites. Such a huge force, and all of them belong to the Jianghu organizations. If they really gather together, it is simply unrealistic. We can only split up and act separately. The great elder of the Ghost clan sighed. The Iron Sword sect elder also sighed. But the problem now is that if we gather together, the enemy will not come. But if we scatter, the enemy will take advantage of the situation and attack. He will use all kinds of methods to kill all of us. And on our side, there is no one who can resist him directly. It was this seemingly unsolvable problem that made everyone frown. Currently, there were only a dozen or so people present who could withstand half a strike from the mysterious murderer. However, they couldn't possibly take care of every single one of them. Moreover, if the enemy used a sneak attack, even if everyone was present and resisted with all their strength, they might not be able to prevent people from being killed. Should we inform the Mo Yintian officials? Get support from there? The Ice Sect elder's face darkened. Please don't. The first elder of the Ghost territory could not help but turn pale. Now, our three families have become the key targets of observation, and even have been noticed by the Heaven Emperor. Maybe we will be sentenced to death at any time. If that's the case, then our three families will really be annihilated. If we inform them now and they come to arrest or capture those people, then we will really have nothing to do with it. In the eyes of the Heaven Emperor, our three families have only brought people out once, and we did not put in any effort. I'm afraid we will feel even worse. Not only will our people die in vain, but we will also get no benefits. The others nodded. What the great elder said makes sense. But with our current manpower, can we catch the enemy? The Iron Sword sect elder was obviously a little uneasy after the two assassinations. He knew that he did not have the strength to do so. Let's cut off all means of retreat. The current situation is that we can't trap the wolf without sacrificing the child. The Ghost sect elder's eyes showed a gloomy look. We have 8,000 people here, and we will be stationed in 20 places. Basically, we can have a peak-level celestial being expert not far away. As for the early celestial being stage, we must ensure that there are at least 3 experts in each place. In this way, if any place is attacked, we can hold on for a period of time. During this period of time, we only need to shout and we will be able to arrive in the shortest time possible. In other words, this operation may sacrifice 300 to 400 people. However, the price of these 300 to 400 people in exchange for the capture of that bloody executioner, I think it is still worth it. Great Elder's brilliant plan. The others praised loudly, expressing their agreement. After all, it may not be so unlucky that it will be the team from my sect, right? It is only a 1 in 3 chance. As for the other sects sacrificing 300 to 400 people, what does it have to do with me? Of course, on the surface I still have to express regret. It must be pretentious. As for the people from Mo Yuntian's military, I believe that they will get the news sooner or later and come here. Even now they are already on their way here. The great elder of the Ghost clan said with a malicious look in his eyes, "We must finish this before they arrive. We must do everything possible to not give them a chance to speak." Yes. Then let's split up and act separately. Divide the experts of our sect into different teams. Especially remember we must raise our vigilance. Okay. Speaking of which, although this mysterious expert killed so many of our people, I don't really blame him in my heart. The Ghost sect elder looked at the corpses on the field, his eyes filled with grief and indignation. But the words he said shocked everyone. Why is that? It is very simple. Since this mysterious expert has the ability to kill so many people silently, then he must have the ability to destroy all these people without leaving any trace. And this person's goal is clear. He is obviously from Chu Yang's side. He can be said to be our mortal enemy. Such a mortal enemy, no matter what he does, it is reasonable. But he still chose to keep the corpses. This in itself is a kind of understanding. Previously, when he killed people outside the city gate in broad daylight, it provided a kind of backing. Because, with just these corpses, the families of these dead people will not be troubled in Mo Yuntian. This is the evidence of sacrifice. If both body and soul are destroyed, there will be no evidence at all. That would really be harming the whole family. Although this mysterious assassin was ruthless in his actions and killed countless people, in the end he did not really kill to the last one and left some leeway. The Ghost sect elder's malicious face also faintly had a trace of admiration. If I were him, facing such a situation, I might not be able to do it so thoroughly too. Although everyone felt that these words were not so pleasing to the ears, they could only nod their heads in agreement. Because what the Ghost sect elder said was not wrong at all. Too many deaths actually did not have anything to do with the 3 great sections. Getting into such a state, it was entirely the 3 great sects who had only themselves to blame. But Lord Heavenly Emperor wanted to take his anger out on the 3 great sections. This was also something that could not be helped. As for failing to complete the mission, beheading the whole family was even more common. But the person already died while carrying out the mission. There was even a corpse as evidence. For your mission you even paid with your life. Already like this, you still want to take your anger out on his family? That would not be justifiable. Still insisting on doing things your way, that would be the standard behavior of a bastard. No matter how Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun covered the sky with one hand, he also did not dare to take the risk in this vast world. Although this mysterious assassin killed many people, to be able to achieve keeping all the corpses, it was equivalent to protecting the families of these victims. Could it be that they should still be grateful to this executioner? Everyone felt that it was strange to the extreme. The people belonging to the 3 great sects all entered Lone Bamboo City. After Chu Yang recovered from the internal injuries, he found an opportunity to meet up with everyone. 3 great sects, close to 1,000 people. Presumably, they should have turned out in full force and came to this Lone Bamboo City. Looking at their posture, if you all don't die, I'm afraid they won't withdraw. Chapter 21:10. Chu Yang said solemnly, "The situation now is obvious. Everyone be mentally prepared." Everyone was silent, and their faces were especially ugly. Those who could live until now were all calm and determined people. Even if the situation was so bad, they would not have the intention to waver. Bai Yuchen let out a long sigh and said, "Almost 1,000 people came. This is basically the foundation of the 3 big sections." Bai Yuchen was the number 3 person in the sect previously. His judgment was undoubtedly very accurate. Since they came to capture us, those who are below the standard of martial saints can't be brought out at all. If this standard is used as the criterion, then the 3 big sects only have 10,000 people at most. This is still the result of hundreds of thousands of years of inheritance. Looks like they are really determined to capture us this time. Bai Yuchen's voice was filled with a kind of vicissitude and sadness. His words made everyone's faces even uglier. Don't tell me that there is no righteous person in our sect? Is there no one who can distinguish right from wrong? Although Che Shuchu was a young expert of the new generation, he was after all a young man and lacked basic experience. At this moment, he was so agitated that his face was flushed red. Usually, everyone is so sanctimonious and their words are powerful. It seems that each and every one of them takes the righteousness of saving the martial world and saving the people of the world as their own responsibility. Why is it that at this time, they can only succumb to their mistakes and come to kill us? That's right. The beginning of this matter was clearly due to him forcefully snatching women. Could it be that in the eyes of Lord Heavenly Emperor in Cloud Heaven, forcefully snatching women is something that should be done? Someone was filled with anger. Bai Yuchen let out a long sigh. It's just reality. In the eyes of Heavenly Emperor, snatching women is undoubtedly a big crime. If the one who did such a thing was not Tai Yuchen but any one of us, I'm afraid that we would have long been ordered to be executed by Heavenly Emperor and announced to the world. But the problem is that the one who snatched women is Tai Yuchen. And Tai Yuchen was actually killed. Bai Yuchen chuckled, full of ridicule. Haha, other people's children are not children, but his own children are his treasures. Someone said, full of ridicule, how can such a narrow-minded person be qualified to oversee a world? How can such a despicable act convince people? How disappointing. Haha. Bai Yuchen sneered and said, I've already said it. It's just reality. You guys don't have to comment on what you're angry about. In the end, you're just unwilling to accept it. Let me ask all of you, if all of you didn't come to the Eastern Royal Sky and weren't forced to the point of no return, if all of you were still in the sect, would you have been part of the group that came to annihilate us? This question made everyone lower their heads. Only Che Shuchu said loudly, I won't, I definitely won't. Bai Yuchen sneered, maybe you won't because you're still young and haven't recognized reality. However, the reality was that most people would do the same. Since this was the reality, what was there to complain about? Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earthweir, that was all. At worst he would just die. What was there to be indignant about? This was Jianghu. This is the essence of the martial world. The Heavenly Emperor loves his son dearly and doesn't treat other people's children as his own. This is a matter of course. Although it was not in accordance with the law, it was pitiful. You guys are so impressive, why don't you go and be a Heavenly Emperor? Heavenly Emperor Blackcloud has the ability to become a Heavenly Emperor of a region. He has the qualifications to stand above laws and regulations. Since things already reached this point, is there any use in talking? What's competing now is whose fist is harder. The so-called reason is nothing more than dog fart. The so-called fairness is nothing more than a joke. The so-called legal system is just empty talk to those in power. The so-called popular will, what's the use at this moment? At least it's meaningless to us right now. If you can't see through this point, don't talk about roaming Jianghu. Although Bai Yuchen's voice was soft, his tone and countenance were stern. If not for Villa Lord Chu, our corpses would have long rotted away. Being able to live until now is already all thanks to Villa Lord Chu risking his life and doing his best. You guys still want to make a ruckus here endlessly. This old man is losing face for you all. Sect elites? Oh. The words made everyone's faces flush red. Hanging their heads, no one opened their mouths to speak anymore. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh and said, now that things have come to this, saying this is also useless. Talking about it, everyone is just somewhat unconvinced in their hearts and grumbling, that's all. What should be done is still done. This point I still believe. Seeing that Chu Yang spoke, Bai Yuchen also took advantage of the situation and no longer scolded the crowd. He said respectfully, yes, what Villa Lord said is right. Actually, how could he not know that these people's anger was just because they were unreconciled and unconvinced? It did not affect their actions at all. But if this kind of anger could not be quelled immediately, they would probably be impulsive sooner or later one day too. One person being impulsive might very well implicate everyone here. This was something that must be guarded against. Now that things have come to this, everyone fight it out with him. Several people's faces flushed red, roaring in a low voice. Right. Fight it out with them. If he doesn't, don't blame us for being unjust. Fight it out. Fight it out. Chu Yang gave a low cry, silence. Everyone's seething emotions immediately quietened down. Each and every one of them looked at Chu Yang while panting heavily. Here I have something to announce. Chu Yang's face was serious. The situation in front of us is very serious. Any disguises you put on now will be useless and meaningless to them. So, during this period no one is allowed to go out. No reason, no exception. Chu Yang threw down 2 space rings and said, "Inside these are the food and water you need, as well as some elixirs for cultivation. It's better than nothing." After a moment of silence, Bai Yu-chen suddenly sighed. "Villa Lord, let us go out. We might as well fight it out with them directly. It can also be considered as ending this feud and saying goodbye to the past." Everyone raised their heads at the same time. Obviously, this was not Bai Yu-chen's idea. They were all people of the pugilistic world and all of them had good skills. Which one of them was not proud and arrogant? If the enemy came, yet he could only hole up in the ground like a coward and hide like a mouse, that feeling was simply worse than death. Chu Yang was silent for a moment before he said, "No. You guys can't make a move, let alone show up. Because as long as you guys make a move, regardless of whether it causes casualties or not, your relatives and clans over there are destined to be finished." Che Shuchu's face flushed red. "But we've already fought with Meng Wuya and their army for 80,000 miles. Those who should be offended have already been offended. What's there to be afraid of? It's not the same. The previous battle and the enemy this time are fundamentally different." Chu Yang said solemnly, "Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun, as a heavenly emperor, if he takes his anger out on his family because of this, it will undoubtedly appear narrow-minded. Furthermore, the negative effects will only be greater. Regarding this, even Yuan Tianji also has to be wary. But if you guys make a move to deal with people from our sect, their trusted aides or relatives in the sect will come to make things difficult or destroy and persecute. It's impossible to guard against. So this time, you guys definitely can't make a move." Chu Yang smiled slightly and said, "I think your family is already suffering enough right now. Don't make things worse for them. Since you guys are following me, then I have to take this aspect into consideration." Bai Yu-chen and the others stood up at the same time. Their faces were full of gratitude as they said from the bottom of their hearts, "Manor Lord, we are infinitely grateful for your kind intentions. Thank you very much." Chu Yang smiled faintly. When a real man does things, there are things to do and things not to do. It's convenient for others and convenient for oneself. But I have to say the ugly words first. We've already done the best we can. Furthermore, even if the people over there were killed by me, most of their corpses were still intact. I've also thought about them. But even if that's the case, if the family over there still suffers from the hands of evil, then I really have no other choice. This is all I can do." Yes. Everyone was sincerely convinced. As a leader, Chu Yang could put himself in their shoes and think so carefully for his subordinates. Everyone was already indescribably grateful. "Our current strength isn't strong enough to fight head-on with the other party. But I believe that one day we will kill our way to Ink Cloud Heaven and find Yuan Tianming to take back this blood debt. We will also be able to take back our family over there." Chu Yang let out a deep breath. "So everyone, please work hard." Everyone watched silently as Chu Yang waved his hand and left. Chu Yang's words echoed in everyone's hearts. In this chaotic world, strength is the most fundamental thing. Everyone felt warm in their hearts. Ever since the incident, they had been worried that their family members would be harmed. They had been on tenterhooks, unable to sleep or eat well. But when Chu Yang's words came out, everyone suddenly felt their hearts calm down. Only with hope would there be a vision for the future. Only with this vision would there be the motivation to continue. Manor Lord has already thought of everything that we can take care of and do. He's even done it to the extreme. If something still happens over there after doing all this, then there's really no other way. Worry is still worry, but it's ultimately beyond our reach. When Chu Yang came out again, he had regained that sickly young man's demeanor from before. The entire courtyard was filled with the smell of medicine. Such a strong smell of medicine had attracted no less than hundreds of people to use their divine senses to explore or come to check. But when they saw that it was a young man with tuberculosis who would die in a few days, they all lost their interest. At this moment, it was already close to noon. Chu Yang was still coughing non-stop. He closed the door with difficulty and walked out with his back hunched. The direction he was heading was the direction of the local food market. The bleak cold wind blew on his body. His tattered clothes that had already turned white from washing fluttered in the wind. It was a desolate sight. Everyone who saw his figure couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Chapter 21:11. The young man turned a few corners and quietly disappeared into the crowd. From the bustling market, he turned into a dark and damp alley. Chu Yang clearly felt that there was no longer any divine sense paying attention to this place. Suddenly, he straightened his body and his divine sense instantly spread out, covering a radius of 30 feet. Within the range of this divine sense, no one would be able to see or hear anything for a certain period of time. Chu Yang quickly grabbed at the ground and the entire ground was instantly covered with a layer of soil that was 30 feet deep. The topmost layer of soil was still attached to rocks and there was even some vegetable and horse dung on the rocks. Chu Yang's body flashed and he disappeared. The ground that was more than 10 feet in radius once again sank back into the ground without a sound. Once again it was seamlessly connected to the houses on both sides. No one would know or think that there was actually a tunnel here. A living person had once disappeared here. It was not only because this method of hiding the entrance was too unreasonable and unconventional. This place was really too dilapidated and too poor. So much so that after the time it took to drink a cup of tea, a vagrant just happened to walk past. After looking around and seeing that there was no one around, he took off his pants and snorted, sprinkling a perverted substance on the ground. Of course, this vagrant did not notice that his urine had actually penetrated the ground very quickly. He only shivered in pleasure, raised his head and sighed deeply. He seemed to be enjoying himself. After he was done he left. Chu Yang, dressed in black, was shuttling through the ground at lightning speed. However, such speed did not make the slightest sound of breaking through the air. Sensing the movement above, he finally reached the end of the tunnel. He popped his head out from a similarly desolate house and vigilantly scanned the surroundings. After confirming that there was no abnormality, he flew up. Then with a whoosh he flew high into the sky. His divine sense spread out without any concealment and enveloped the area below. Under a series of coincidences, Chu Yang's cultivation had improved greatly. When he reached the celestial being level, he directly reached the peak of the initial stage of the celestial being level. His overall combat strength was no less than that of a peak celestial being level expert. However, compared to his divine sense cultivation, it was still far inferior. His divine sense was already extremely powerful due to his many fortuitous encounters. Now it had improved even more. With the help of the heaven-multiplying divine technique and the different attributes of his divine sense, it could be said to be extremely powerful. It was not below the level of a sage. With such a powerful divine sense in the current lone bamboo city, it could kill any god that stood in its way or Buddha that stood in its way. No one dared to block its sharpness. Such a powerful divine sense was like a huge net that covered the entire lone bamboo city from all directions. The corners of Chu Yang's mouth curled into a sneer. He carefully and quickly identified everything that he wanted to confirm. The moment this divine sense rushed out, in the inn where a certain empress was staying, Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma, who were both saint-level experts, were shocked. Who was this person? How could such a super expert come to Lone Bamboo City? The two of them simultaneously spread out their divine senses, wanting to make contact with it. However, they were shocked to find that their divine senses could not get close to the other party's core. What did this mean? The two of them looked at each other in shock. How could there be such a thing? The two of them retracted their divine senses at the same time. The other party obviously did not want to be probed. This was certain. If the two of them rashly probed and angered the other party, such a powerful enemy would appear out of nowhere. Moreover, they still had to take care of Master Ma. That would be a big problem. But in the next moment, the two of them had a new discovery. After that powerful divine sense searched around, it seemed to spread out aimlessly. Then, it suddenly disappeared without a trace. It came and went in such a hurry. It came and went without a trace. It was really strange. The two of them wiped the cold sweat off their heads at the same time. Uncle Hu still had a lingering fear. Who was this person? It must be known that the experts above the saint level were all famous. Even if they were both saint level experts, there was a considerable gap between the beginner saint level and the saint level. Unless they were like the divine soul of calamity and had the trait of being immortal, a beginner saint level expert would definitely not be a match for a saint level expert. Even if Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma, the two beginner saint-level experts, joined hands, they might not be able to withstand one move from a saint-level expert. Uncle Ma's expression was solemn. Could this person be Mo Yuntian's subordinate? Would Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuntian send out such a heavyweight expert? It can't be. Uncle Hu was a little suspicious. It's hard to say. Uncle Ma sighed deeply. If such an expert really came out, that Chu Yang would not be able to escape this time. Even the two of them together could not defeat him. What could a mere Chu Yang do? In the room, Tan Tan's two eyes, one big and one small, shone fiercely. Although this divine sense was extremely strong and seemed to be boundless, Tan Tan still felt a trace of a very familiar and real feeling from it. Is it Senior Brother? When did Senior Brother become so strong? Isn't this a little too ridiculously strong? Yes, Itchy, he is indeed here. Tan suddenly. He felt his heart boiling. Senior brother, I'm here to help you. Xie Feng, you blessed little girl, I'm always looking for you. Are you touched? Chu Yang's body was like a meteorite falling to the ground. He fell from the sky at an extremely fast speed. His target was clear. Mixed with surging and biting cold killing intent, it also carried infinite elegance and calmness. At this moment Chu Yang's heart was like stone. Must kill. Chu Yang had never been a bloodthirsty person. But this time he must take the initiative to wield the butcher's knife and personally kill all the opponents here. There was no basis for this. There was even no gratitude or grudges. There was only a clear reality: if the enemy does not die, then I die. It was so simple, so pure. This was the iron-blooded law of the martial world. Chu Yang's target this time was a big courtyard in a city. This place used to be the residence of a wealthy family. When Chu Yang went out for a stroll to observe the situation, he passed by this place several times. However, in just a short period of 2 hours, the people living here had already been replaced. Moreover, the people living here had already been settled down. As for the family of the rich family, they did not leave the house. They just disappeared into thin air. Why did they disappear? Where did they disappear to? Chu Yang knew in his heart. He believed that the lone bamboo city lord's heart was as clear as snow. But the demon empress had ordered him to do his best to make things convenient for Mo Yunqian's people. For this kind of thing he could only open one eye and close the other. Moreover, the people who were killed were ultimately from the human race, not the demon race. At this time, it was really not suitable to pursue the matter. Chu Yang and this rich family naturally did not know each other. In his heart he did not have much thoughts of revenge. But now the people living in his house must be killed. It could also be considered as revenge for him. Or it could be said that the goal was different but the result was the same. Chu Yang was 1,000 feet high in the air. Looking down he could clearly see that these people were busy in the courtyard. From time to time, some people were paying attention to the movements outside. They seemed to be on high alert. The corner of Chu Yang's mouth revealed a trace of a cold smile. Like a goshawk searching for food, he swept down. Before he landed, the sword intent transformed into what harms slaughtering the entire world, had already swept out wildly. The cold sword energy had already enveloped the entire courtyard in an instant. It was an indiscriminate attack in a large area. Puff puff puff, countless piercingly cold sword cheese suddenly descended and danced in all directions. There was nothing they could not destroy, nothing they could not break. Even the hard stone walls were pierced through with a single blow. As for the empty courtyard, the sword energy was even more rampant. Those who blocked it were swept away. Enemy attack. Someone shouted. Without a doubt this was a message. Chu Yang was already mentally prepared for this. He completely ignored it. With a sword strike his body swept down like a hurricane. A calamity sword bloomed with an earth-shattering light. He started a massacre. It was not an evenly matched battle, but a one-sided extremely bloody massacre. For Chu Yang, who had the strength close to the peak of heavenly human stage and had the assistance of the calamity sword, there was no opponent on the spot. From start to finish, it was only a moment. The courtyard was already full of corpses. Blood and broken limbs were scattered everywhere. It wasn't even noon yet, but Chu Yang had already launched 3 ambushes. This was far from what the people of Moyunshan and the other 2 sects had expected. Who would have thought that the cruel and bloody executioner would not stop temporarily after 2 fatal attacks? He even chose to launch an attack at noon, when the sun was at its brightest in the sky. What kind of guts, what kind of boldness, and what kind of arrogance? The autumn wind was still bleak, but the noon sun was warm and pleasant. But in this warm and pleasant atmosphere, Chu Yang's sudden arrival with a cold and dense killing intent made these people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. At this moment there were many corpses strewn all over the room. They were killed by the sword energy that pierced through the stone walls. They were caught off guard and died. It could be said that these people were the most innocent ones to have died so far. There were also some people who came from all directions. Some of them shouted loudly and pounced forward. They did not care about their own lives to stop Chu Yang. A heavenly human stage expert rode his sword and came from the sky. He was full of vigor. Around him there were 7 or 8 peak martial saint stage experts. They attacked ferociously without any regard for their own safety. At this moment they were all fighting with their lives on the line. Chu Yang laughed hoarsely. Playing with your lives. Excuse me. Instantly the sword energy shot up into the sky. It only clashed with the heavenly human stage expert for a short while. Then it took advantage of the momentum and retreated. With a magnificent sword light, it went straight into the sky. In a flash, it had already disappeared. Poof! That celestial being expert fell to the ground, covered in blood. His sword had already been turned into iron shavings, and he was unable to resist at all. Then Chu Yang neatly pierced 17 or 18 bloody holes in his body. Chapter 21:12. From the west, the great elder of Ironsword clan was hurrying over with his men. They were less than 1,000 feet away from the courtyard. However, at this moment he heard the sounds of battle coming to a sudden stop. Had the enemy escaped? So many people couldn't even hold on for such a short period of time. That person's strength was so strong and he was so sharp. He didn't give the enemy any chance to take advantage of him. Just as the great elder was feeling unhappy, a black shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. Then a sword mountain came crashing down from the sky. It came out of the blue and it came out of the blue. It came out of the blue and it came to kill. Now that the Tribulation Sword Master had broken through to the celestial being level, the power he could unleash was unimaginable. At least, it had already surpassed the limits of martial artists of the same level. Chu Yang performed the 30 moves of Tribulation Sword technique one by one. Every single one of his moves was enhanced by the energy of the sword. Just the sword intent alone was already invincible. Coupled with the powerful activation of the Tribulation Sword, the exquisite use of the heaven-splitting divine technique, the limitless supply of energy from his Dantian, and the endless murderous intent of the Tribulation Sword Master. With such an extreme boost, the power that could be unleashed was simply enough to shock the heavens and earth and make ghosts and gods weep. The great elder turned around and instinctively drew his sword to meet the attack. Just as the sword was in his hand, he suddenly remembered that this was no longer the divine weapon he had used for hundreds of thousands of years. Just because of this carelessness, the sword mountain had already smashed into the crowd. The great elder howled and flew up on his sword. He chased after the black shadow in the sky, hoping to hold this butcher back. However, he could only see the enemy's back getting further and further away. It was another strike that sent him flying 1,000 miles away. He couldn't help but stare at Chu Yang with hatred. Chu Yang's method of action was simple and pure. He only used one move. Just one move. No matter if the move succeeded or not, he didn't want to fight. He even used the remaining power of the move to retreat. He didn't stop. If it was an ordinary enemy, it wouldn't be a big deal. Even if there were losses, it would be limited. However, if the Tribulation Sword Master at the celestial being level used his Tribulation Sword and Tribulation Sword intent to retreat, it would be very, very fatal. It could even be infinitely fatal. With just a single touch, 70 to 80 people had already died here forever. The survivors of the Iron Sword sect were all dumbstruck. Previously, he hadn't made any preparations, hadn't been on guard, and hadn't been too vigilant. Even if he couldn't withstand it, he still had something to say. But this time they were almost fully prepared. The strongest great elder was the first to bear the brunt of the attack, but even so he was unable to block the attack. Instead, he was slaughtered by the other party and left calmly. In the blink of an eye, the orderly formation of the army was reduced to a pile of flesh and blood. If this continued, wouldn't they all be killed by the enemy sooner or later? This is the fourth attack today. Chu Yang silently muttered in his heart. Then his entire body flew away at lightning speed. In the north, the great elder of the ghost territory had brought the most people with him. Naturally, his momentum was the greatest. However, was it really easy to do things with so many people? Not necessarily. Just as they were about to enter the area where the commotion came from, a bright sword light suddenly appeared in front of them. The moment they saw the sword light had turned into a blazing sun in the sky, and they could no longer look at it directly. A steady and cold voice said, "Who in the world can stop the sword master?" Then the dazzling sword light turned into a mighty Yangtze River. The Yangtze River's 3 layers wolf, one wave higher than the other. The great elder of the ghost territory was shocked. He shouted, "Everyone be careful. Move to the sides immediately." As he spoke, he drew his sword and went forward. In this trip, the great elder had the highest cultivation. At this moment, the soldiers were in danger. Naturally, he didn't pass on his responsibility to others. The sword light didn't change its direction at all. It collided with the great elder of the ghost territory without any tricks. The great elder shouted, "Bastard! We were fooled. This sword light only had the momentum to intimidate people. It wasn't the main force at all. You guessed right. This sword light was just a sword intent. Although it wasn't completely intimidating, its lethality was very limited. Especially for experts, it didn't pose any threat at all. As for Chu Yang himself, he had already driven the Calamity Sword and rushed into the crowd. The massacre started again. The Calamity Sword was waved again. This time, Chu Yang didn't hold back at all. From one ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms, he kept waving his sword until, "Don't hold back my blade after killing the world." 30 moves, he went all out again. Chu Yang's dantian was emptied again in a very short time. There wasn't a single drop left. Finally, a huge bright ball of light suddenly exploded in the crowd. It turned into a monstrous sword energy that shot up to the sky. Then it turned into an invincible dragon. It started from the front of the crowd and rushed forward with unparalleled momentum. Wherever it passed, heads would fly up and severed limbs would fly into the air. Before the severed limbs at the front could fly to the highest point, the colorful and resplendent sword light had already pierced through the back of the team like a long dragon. It didn't even look back all the way. Swoosh! It turned into the last little bright light of the end of the scorching sun. Then it disappeared without a sound. The great elder of the ghost clan trembled all over. He almost vomited blood. Although the opponent's sword energy wasn't powerful enough, it still succeeded in stopping him for a moment. He had the cultivation of a beginner saint, but he couldn't save the people on his side. When he had completely destroyed the opponent's sword energy and was about to turn around to attack, he only saw the back of the opponent. He couldn't catch up. Only a hoarse voice could be heard. "There are too few people from the ghost clan who died these 2 days. Today I'm here to make up for it." A long hoarse laugh seemed to come from countless places in all directions. Then it returned to silence. "Scoundrel! Stay here. Fight me to the death." The great elder of the ghost clan roared to the sky. His voice was as shrill as a ghost's. However, the opponent didn't make any sound. Obviously he had gone far away. When he saw the loss of the scene, the great elder of the ghost clan was really angry. He coughed with a red face. He resisted the urge to vomit blood. Just this one wave of attacks from the enemy had reduced the total of 1,200 people of the 3 teams by more than 800 people. The ground was covered in a thick layer of flesh and blood. Puff 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 puff. Until now, the broken limbs and heads that flew in the air fell down one after another. They fell on the flowing blood on the ground, making dull sounds. Everyone was dumbfounded. The enemy was so fierce and ruthless. How could they be like this? This is the 5th time. The moment Chu Yang returned to the tunnel, he relaxed. His body staggered and almost fell down. His whole body was almost drained of all strength. He was really out of strength. Just now, he had used the sword energy to entangle the great elder of the ghost clan, who had the highest cultivation. Then he used the tribulation sword technique to slaughter the 3 teams together. It seemed like a glorious achievement, but in fact, he had exhausted all his cultivation. If it weren't for the heaven-splitting divine technique, which allowed him to recover faster than ordinary techniques, and the huge spiritual energy from the tribulation space, Chu Yang wouldn't have been able to hold on with his own strength. In one day he faced a cloud of experts and attacked 5 times consecutively. If he counted the dozens of attacks he launched last night, it was equivalent to launching close to 20 attacks in one day. With the strength of one person. In one day and one night, he had buried close to 4,000 top experts. Close to 4,000 Heaven Imperial Court experts who had at least reached the level of saint. In the entire Heaven Imperial Court, among all the Heavenly Man experts, even those at the peak of Heavenly Man level, there was absolutely no one who could achieve such a glorious achievement. Just as Chu Yang said, "Below the saints I am the best." There was absolutely no exaggeration in this sentence. Moreover, even if the beginner saints were included, they might not be able to achieve such a terrifying and shocking achievement as Chu Yang. After staying in the tunnel for a while and catching his breath, Chu Yang finally recovered some of his energy. Then he slowly walked to the other side of the tunnel. When he reached the other side, he still carefully used his divine senses to check the movements above. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, Chu Yang took a deep breath and slowly lifted the entire ground. Just as he was about to fly up, he unexpectedly saw water droplets dripping down from the cracks. Could it be that it suddenly rained outside? Chu Yang frowned and sniffed subconsciously. Suddenly he felt a fishy smell. As a man, Chu Yang was really too familiar with this smell. Damn it! Who peed here? Chu Yang cursed his bad luck. In a moment of carelessness, he almost let the urine into his mouth. He couldn't help but feel angry. Who was so uncivilized? Could it be that his bad luck wasn't over yet? In his annoyance he flashed out. A skinny youth with a sallow face and a hunched back walked out weakly with his head lowered. He used what seemed to be his last remaining water cloud coins to buy some vegetables, and also bought some discounted sesame seed cakes and steamed buns that had already turned cold. He walked back with his back against the wall, trembling all the way. After taking 2 steps, he coughed for a while. It was a heart-wrenching cough. That thin and weak figure, under the whistling autumn wind, was so pitiful. Who would have thought that such a thin and weak, cowering, pitiful and weak young man was the bloody executioner who had just slaughtered thousands of experts by himself with only one sword? Was this the return of the king? After walking out of the market in the slums and returning to the street, he saw flashing figures everywhere. Countless people were scurrying around with red eyes, looking for something. As they searched, they cursed incessantly. Damn it! Bastard bastard! Cruel and merciless beast! This goddamn executioner! Leaning against the wall, he picked up the vegetables and cold steamed buns one by one and staggered back home, closing the door tightly. Outside, the workers of the medicine hall who were watching all of this couldn't help but sigh sympathetically. However, after being bullied like this, the 2 of them did not dare to curse back. That's right, if it were him, wouldn't he also not dare to scold him? However, the expert of the demon clan who had bumped into Chu Yang was only a few thousand feet away from the place where the incident had occurred. But he suddenly felt that it was difficult to breathe. It was as if a pair of cold big hands were strangling his neck, constantly increasing the strength and tightening. Who is it? He shouted in horror. As far as the eye could see, there was clearly nothing around, but where did the feeling of being strangled come from? Although it was illusory, it felt more and more real, more and more real. The next moment, a black smoke rose in front of him, and a skull appeared out of nowhere. It sneered eerily, "Bastard! How dare you? Do you know who you have offended?" This expert of the demon clan trembled. He suddenly remembered a legendary item and couldn't help but cry out in horror, "The god of calamity!" Before he could finish, his neck was twisted by some inexplicable force. Only a gloomy voice was left, "Great tonic, not bad." Then a black smoke quietly drifted away. That night, everyone on the street inexplicably found that there was an extra bag of money in their homes. Inside there were Shuiyun coins, Ziyun coins, and even Zixia coins. Some found it in the place where they were cooking, some found it when they opened their blankets at night, and some found it directly on the table where they were eating. Without exception, there was a small note inside, "Good people will be rewarded." Everyone who had obtained this money tightly guarded this secret. Not because of anything else, but because this money was really too big. Once it was spread out, their families would be the first to suffer, causing unnecessary disasters. Sometimes having too much money was not luck, but disaster. It was just that in everyone's home, a nameless longevity tablet was quietly set up. It said, "Good people will be rewarded. May our benefactor live a long life." Every one of these people worked cautiously as usual, but the quality of their lives improved a lot. Some even began to plan whether it was time to send their children to school. Not only these people, but for a long time in the future, almost every poor family in Lone Bamboo City, as long as they knew their place and didn't do evil, received this kind of money. For generations, everyone had already accepted their fates, and that was how they would live their lives. In fact, their parents and ancestors lived like this. They also thought that they would live like this and their children and grandchildren would live like this. However, after this incident, everything that followed changed suddenly and subtly. Good people will be rewarded. Even the heavens had eyes. Even if heaven didn't have eyes, people still had eyes. As long as you worked hard, you would be rewarded. No one knew that a piece of paper and a bag of money without any sound had changed the lives of many people. Or as the note said, good people will naturally be rewarded. That night, Chu Yang didn't go back to meet up with Bai Yu Chen and the others. He simply slept in this thatched hut as a consumptive young man. Everything was so appropriate, as if this young man had always existed. That night, the noises were unceasingly heard throughout the night. The sound of the wind and the cries of the crane could be heard everywhere. It seemed as if every bush and tree was an enemy. Even though Chu Yang had disguised himself as a sickly youth in the slums, he could still clearly feel the prelude of the coming storm. That kind of silent oppression enveloped the entire Lone Bamboo City. That night, another 100 people died mysteriously. These people who had lost their lives had all unknowingly died in their sleep. They had silently lost their lives. Even after death, the expression on their faces was still very peaceful, as if they were still sleeping soundly. But, It was impossible for so many people to die in their sleep at the same time. It was impossible for so many martial saints to die in their sleep at the same time. There must be something fishy about this. The leaders of the three sects gathered again in the wee hours of the morning. This time, there is definitely something fishy about it. This time it was clearly not the work of that goddamn executioner. This time it was another kind of surprise attack. But no matter what, it can't be explained. Even the people who were close to him couldn't discover it. Why is this? What kind of strange method could cause such an effect? Among the doubts, the great elder of the Ghost Clan's face was gloomy. He didn't speak from the beginning. At the end of the discussion, he lowered his voice and said, "This time, I'm afraid we have encountered a real problem." "What do you mean?" The others were even more confused and asked. Although the previous mysterious killer's cultivation was extremely high, he may not be one of Chu Yang's men. As far as I know, among those people, there is no one who has such cultivation and swordsmanship. That's right. Among them, Bai Yuchen's cultivation is the highest, but she definitely can't reach such a level. As for Chu Yang, who killed Tai that day, he used some kind of method to exchange his life for tyrannical strength. He can't use it frequently and he can't use it again. He is still a small shrimp in his bones and he doesn't have such strength. So, I didn't connect the incident during the day to Chu Yang. Although there must be some kind of connection, it was definitely not them who did it. This is already certain. The great elder of the Ghost Clan said slowly, but the strange deaths of 118 people last night reminded me of one thing, a very important thing. What important thing? The others asked in unison. I remember General Meng Wuya once said that Chu Yang had a divine soul in his hands. And General Meng Wuya, because of the divine soul in the final battle, was seriously injured and couldn't fight anymore. So, this group of survivors fled 88,000 miles and finally escaped. With this, everyone was suddenly enlightened. Yes, I see. Then everything makes sense. So, the one who did it last night must be the divine soul in tribulation. Only a divine soul in tribulation can have such a mysterious method. This, General Meng didn't complete the task that day. I see. I'm ignorant, I haven't heard of it. Humph, we are now the key people under surveillance. Who will tell us this? If I didn't have a friend in Wei Jun, I would never know this. The great elder of the Ghost Clan sighed. That's right. Since the other party is a divine soul in tribulation, how should we deal with it? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.